Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we'd run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out and I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Stephen May, a.k.a. Mr. Kumu. How the devil are you, mate? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks very much for having me.
Down, you're a long way from home,
well,
boy.
Yeah, bit of a long way from home, about 6 hours.
Is that how long it took?
Yeah, well, bit of traffic on the M1 and that, but yeah, long old way down from Liverpool, but
That's longer than me, mate. That's a long old time.
Yeah, you're up north as well.
Manchester, isn't I?
Yeah.
You're a bit more scouse than me, mate.
Yeah, just a little bit. You might have to get it translated on this.
No, we've got
subtitles.
We're all right, mate. Recent movements, mate. You've been doing a bit of fishing, haven't you?
Yeah, been out and about a little bit. Times it's a bit precious at the moment with everything going on, but I try and slot in as much as I can.
Where have you been?
I've just joined Warrington Anglers, just doing a couple of the lakes round that way. Sort of didn't really have any plans. Obviously, I used to fish Blakemere an awful lot.
Yeah.
And sort of come to the end of my time on there, really sort of add the few fish that I wanted there. And then sort of moved on. Didn't really have a plan, just sort of flitted about a little bit, come down south a few times, down to like Horseshoe and a couple of sessions on Orchid. But yeah, I didn't really have any sort of plan in place on what to do, so I thought I'll stay local for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just moved house as well, so I thought I'll keep the cost down, just join a club water rather than an expensive syndicate and that. So
you're not Liverpool anymore. I've got to say Wirral now. Haven't
well, yeah, we've plastic scouser now, as people like to call us. But yeah, just moved over in June last year.
Right,
just somewhere a little bit quieter. A little bit closer to some of the waters and fishing, so
edgy, nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, mate, a lot of people will know you from Kumu, the clothing brand.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily that much known with regards to angling, but we're going to encapsulate and talk about everything that is you with your sort of creative design head, how that got into business, and also initially, and where we're going to start, is you and your angling, mate. Now, for you, I was shocked when we were planning this, when you were talking about the angling that you'd done over the course of time. You've always been sort of northern based, haven't you, mate?
Yeah.
And your angling, you sort of referenced a fishery in Wales, mate. Was that the place at which sort of proper carping started for you?
Pretty much. Basically, what it is, when I was a kid and before I could drive, my mum and dad had a touring caravan. So we literally, in the summer holidays, they'd tell me to plan the holiday around where I wanted to fish. So I'd look for fisheries that either had like a campsite nearby or like Linnigores had a campsite on site. So that was how it all started for me.
Did they fish? No,
mum and dad had never fished in their lives. My dad's PB is a 22-pound minnow because I had a double run once and he had to land it. That's literally how it started. Used to travel around all summer holidays with my mum and dad. We used to go down to Linear. This is going back like a long, long time. But yeah, we'd literally go for the whole 6 weeks. We'd just stop off in different places. They put the caravan up, I'd go fishing. And then
are they just happy watching you fish and letting you crack on?
Well, I'd normally just fish. They'd go off and do their bike rides, whatever they wanted to do during the day. And then that's how it all started. So they used to love like Oxford. They used to go down to Devon quite a bit. Used to fish a place, what's it called? New Barn Farm.
No.
In Devon. But they loved like Devon and painting.
Yeah.
So we'd literally just plot up there. It was only a few miles away from the fishery. Couldn't night fish it at the time. So I'd normally fish during the day. They might come with me. And then at night we'd just go for the walk and that. And yeah.
This sounds ideal, man. I need to get my kids into this.
It was.
Brilliant.
So
Let me fish, you crack on.
Yeah.
I'll see you at night.
My dad's like never fished in his life, but just loved it. And like when I first started out, we used to go to Cheshire Fisheries
Yeah.
in Tattenhall.
Yeah.
Every single weekend, my mum would do a big pack lunch. All three of us would go up, and that's how it all started. Yeah, before I could drive.
Why do you think fishing sort of, I don't know, grabbed you, mate? Because, like, looking at, I don't know, and we'll talk about this later, but looking at sort of your skill set and stuff with regards to now you've gone into the industry, there's a lot of different paths you could have taken. We're going to talk about uni days and all sorts of other stuff. Why do you think fishing was a constant without sort of, I don't know, a parental influence or something more textbook, even in those early days?
I mean, going back to the very beginning, where it started for me, we, again, family holiday, we were in Alcudia. I think I must have been maybe 8 or 9, possibly. And there was a little jetty, and there was all people fishing off the end of it. And as we were going back to the hotel at night, there was a retractable rod just sticking out of a bin. Someone had obviously been on holiday fishing with it and just put it in the bin when they left. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with that, I'll have that. And then literally started fishing off the end of the jetty on that holiday. And that
just off your own volition, like
just because I'd seen people doing it and I thought, I'll have a go at that. And really enjoyed it, and then got obviously horrifically sunburned. I was sat in 35-degree heat on the end of a jetty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
you catch anything?
Only little, like, I don't even know what they were. Obviously, sea fish. At
least you caught something.
Yeah, little piece of. Used to take little bread rolls from breakfast in the morning.
Yeah,
and that's how it started.
That's not your average starting point, is it? Normally, it's like, I caught a roach or I caught a perch with a maggot on a little whip, and then, do you know what I mean? Alcudia is a bit of a difference.
It was just weird, just how it all sort of worked out, and then like from there, sort of got the bug, if you like, and then come back home, got a couple of little rods and that, and then started fishing Cheshire Fisheries, just like little match water stuff like that, and then just sort of built up from there, really, going from catching like single figure fish, and then used to fish at Burton Mere.
Mate, where's Burton Mere? Give me an idea.
I'm trying to think where it is. I think it's on the Whittle somewhere. The actual village is called Burton. It's turned into an RSPB place now.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I couldn't drive at that point, so my dad would come and do a full weekend with me. And he loves it. Still comes with me every now and again now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's cool, mate.
He just loves being the same as me. He just likes being out fishing, being outdoors.
Outside. Yeah, fair days. Talk to me about those early influences. So carp fishing, obviously, bit. We talked about these holidays where you plan them around basically places where you wanted to go fishing. What were the old first experiences like? Because you're just, I'm guessing it's a lot of trial and error as well, mate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because like, making myself sound old here, but like back when I first started, there wasn't all the YouTube and all the tutorial stuff that there is now. So it was very much trial and error. You know, I had no one to show me because no one in the family fished.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm just tying hooks on with like 20 granny knots, and like there was, when it first started down in that New Barn Farm and painting, the fella there, I think Andy, his name was, he showed me how to like tie a knotless knot and all that, and it sort of built from there. But yeah, it was all very much trial and error back then.
What shockers? You have some shockers?
Trying to think back. I mean, tying leads on was probably the one, because obviously when you're a kid, this is the thing. It's like, you know, when you're a kid, and there's nothing. You know, there was the magazines, but like I'd sort of started fishing before I'd even like read a magazine, sort of thing. So you don't know any different. No. And then it was that Andy at New Barn Farm. He said, "I'll just check your rigs." Obviously, seeing that I was an absolute noddy, and he's like his eyes was like deer in the headlights. He was like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "What?" And then what he explained, I was like, "Oh yeah, makes sense now." But you don't know any different when you're 7-8 years old and you've had no guidance. But so I think that's the difference now, isn't it? You know, there's tons of stuff on YouTube you can watch to learn things. But back then, there wasn't an awful lot.
I remember going and not knowing how to lock a float in place. You know, like a waggler.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you stop this just sliding up your line? It makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I was the same as you. I didn't really have a sort of an influence or a parent that could teach me how to do it. I sort of had to learn pretty much by yourself, or punishing the guy at the old tackle shop.
Yeah.
Big love, shout out Pete Wheaton, because he put up with loads of my rubbish. For you, was there any other, you said magazines there, what sort of magazines were around at the time? What did you have? Did you have Cruisy Course Fishing? Were you that?
There was ACF, was probably the first one I started buying, and then you sort of start learning things. I used to have a little plastic wallet folder thing. Any rigs and that, I'd take the page out and put it in a folder.
You did.
And then do it that way, and you sort of started learning.
Were you like from that point, were you sort of immersed in the carping world, as in like significant figures and people that were in the magazine? Were you like, oh, I want to be like him, or interested in that aspect, or was it just the fishing that sort of?
It was just the fishing. I've never really sort of been that way inclined to like sort of aspire to be someone or do something. It's just been like I just love fishing.
Yeah,
Used to love, like I say, like most people, you start with a float rod and just watching that float go. And that's what I used to love, and that's what I used to do at like Cheshire Fisheries and stuff. And then, you'd be catching like 50, 70 fish in a day, and it started getting a bit boring. So you'd go somewhere where the fish were a bit bigger, and then just sort of pick up from there. But yeah, it's used to. So I mentioned Linney Gores. That was where I'd say carp fishing properly started for me, because that was a difficult water. That Thompson's pool. It was probably only about 3 acres, but I think at the time I was fishing, there was only about 18 fish in there.
Wow, so that's tricky, mate.
Yeah, used to probably average about 1 fish a week, possibly, but it'd go weeks without doing a fish at all. And that's when I say when I was in uni, which again they probably come on to in a bit. I used to do full week sessions, down at Linney at Linney Gores when I had the time. So like when you spend a full week on a lake, you can learn a lot about it, like the fish's like behaviour and stuff like that. And there was a swim called, I think it was called a double bay. And it's going to sound mental when I say it, but it literally happened. Like, because I do a full week session, it sort of like came to a bit of a point in the middle. It had like a weird shaped island which sectioned off every swim. I think there was about 6 or 7 swims on the lake.
Okay.
And the island was a bit of a sort of swastika shape, if you like.
Yeah.
And this double bay had a huge set of pads in front. And I'd worked out Monday to Wednesday, the fish came out it from the left-hand side. And Wednesday to Friday, they came out it from the other side. I know that sounds ridiculous, but...
Well, they're on rotation, right? Your rotor, boys.
Literally, you could watch it happen because you could see the pads moving.
Wow.
And it was just so weird. But that's when I properly got the bug for proper carp fishing, because it was like you're spending a lot of time on a lake and just learning about what those fish are doing. And then that just sort of like, just infatuated me then. But
those early trips, Linney Gores, what sort of tackle were you using, mate? What did you have?
I had proper carp gear at that point.
Do you remember what you had?
I had, funny enough, I've only just got rid of the rods that I actually had. I had, when I used to work in Taskers angling, which I spoke to you about before.
Well, that's a historical Liverpool shop, isn't it?
Yeah, it was 16 when I first started there, because Cliff, he used to be the manager there. His son went to my school, St. Margaret's. And he used to pick him up from school every day, so we got talking. I think like one day when I was old enough to have like a part-time job, I said to him, is there any chances of anything going? So funny enough, one of the lads has just left, so yeah, come in at the weekend.
What was that like?
I loved it.
Did you?
I mean, I did for a time, because obviously my weekends were the only time I could get out fishing. And then when you've got a weekend job working Saturday and Sunday and you can't get out fishing, it did start taking its toll, because you're talking to people out fishing every single weekend,
exactly.
But you can't then go out and do it. But yeah, when I was there, I bought my first proper carp setup. So I had a set of Shimano Tribal ARDL rods.
I remember, yeah.
I've literally only just got rid of them.
Have you?
Yeah, last year. Like seeing some action then, but yeah.
What reels you have?
Daiwa Sportsmatics. Do you remember the big grey ones with the bait runner switch on the back?
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah.
Did you have them?
Yeah, I had them. Yeah, they were the ones down from the Infinities, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Because I remember they used to have them on display in Taskers, and like I'm saving up on my wages. Like I'm gonna get a set of 3 of them when I can afford them. As soon as I could, I bought them. That was literally my setup for years. Kept the rods, replaced the reels.
What reels did you progress to, mate? Here.
Shimano XTCs.
Actually, those bait. Those,
the old Tegra XTCs, the black and silver. But literally, I've only just replaced them this year. Like I've had them for about 15 years. I tend to like keep on my gear. Like I look after it.
Yeah, I can imagine you do.
But yeah, that was my first proper carp setup. So yeah, when I was fishing Linney Gores, I did have proper kit at that point.
Tactics, rig wise, what was successful? What sort of sticks out capture wise as well at that time?
I used to fish this little combi rig. I think it was an Adam Penning rig from the magazines.
Yeah.
Used to be a little section of fluoro. I used to fish a lot of particle and stuff. So it was a little tiny section of fluoro with two loops either end, and a little doubled over section of like supple braid with a little rig ring on.
Oh, so the rig ring knitted them together?
Yeah, so you tied an overhand loop, so you had maybe 3 or 4 inches, and then I can't remember, it was knotted, but then it created like a double section of like little supple braid at the end. Yeah, that was the first.
That's some advanced stuff. Knotless knot on the end. Or
yeah,
what?
yeah, just knotless knot, and then the actual knot you tied in that loop would be like where you put the hair stuff.
Okay. Yeah,
but yeah. Funny enough, I have still got. I know we spoke about it briefly before it came in. I've still got that rig in my rig box. It's a little superstition thing. Every PB that I catch, I keep that exact rig in my little rig box.
I knew you'd be one of these, mate.
Yeah,
I knew it.
I love it. It's just like, this is going to sound stupid as well, but I get them out and put them on my table when I'm fishing for good luck. So I've got my PB Ghosty, which you might show me.
You get the rig out?
It's just a little, people have like little good luck charms. That's my good luck charm. So I've got my PB, Common, Mirror, and Ghosty. I know some people won't class Ghosty as a proper carp, but it's just a little superstition thing I've always done. I have them out on my table when I'm fishing for good luck.
You put those rigs out?
Yeah.
That is... I've never heard of that superstition. I've heard of like paying the lake, like flicking a coin in. I've seen lads have like significant maybe like objects, whether that be on the rod rest or whether that be in the bivvy. But I've never seen somebody lay out 3 rigs.
It's just one of those, people have like little like toys or whatever that the kids have given them. They put them on the bank sticks. Like, that's just been my thing. I've always kept my PB rigs.
Oh, mate, we're going to have a right laugh when we go. I'm going to take your rigs, mate. We're going to do... What happens if you lose a rig? You'd go mental, wouldn't you?
Mate, I think once a coot had got into the bivvy, because it's still got the bait on as well. It's obviously bullets hard. I think the Ghosty one, I was fishing 2 little 10 millers, and they've gone rock hard. And then it was it must have been a mouse. I think it was a mouse or a coot or something that got into the bivvy and taken the rig off the table to try and get the bait. So it's only got 1 on it now, but literally I still got me 3 PB rigs with the bait on.
You'd have the coot on your table as well, mate.
Stuffed taxidermy.
I can't believe it. I knew you'd be like a bit of a stickler for detail or have some sort of something like that going on with what sort of textbook creative minds. But yeah, I didn't think it'd go to that extreme, mate. Baits wise, what do you remember around that? You said a lot of particle there. Any reason? Just because of cost and stuff?
No, I mean, to be fair, when I used to fish Linny Gores, used to be Richworth KG1.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
It used to, that smell reminded me of, you walk into a tackle shop and you get that mix of smells and flavours.
Yeah.
That's what that reminded me of. So you used to fish that. And then, when I started fishing St. John's a lot, and there was a lot of particle, like smaller baits, so I just started fishing particle, and that's why I was fishing the little short combi rigs. But
significant captures, Linny Gores, especially those earlier ones. Did you get your first 20 from there?
I probably would have done, or St. John's. But it probably would have been. I was after my first 30 at Linny Gores. I think there was maybe only about 3 or 4 30s in there at the time. But one of those old gold photos that I sent you earlier, that was one of my main targets in there. And it was always between 31, 32. And I did, it was 29, 14. I think it was, and it would have been my first 30. But yeah, it was a difficult lake. That I think they thought there was more stock in there than there was, but it was always the same sort of, when you look back through photos, the same sort of 18, 20 fish that were coming out all the time. But yeah, there was a couple of my target fish that I had out of there. I think both of them, ironically, they were a couple of ounces under 30. And I was still chasing my first 30 for years, and it just never felt like it was going to happen. But like, I think it's sort of like, I think it gets a bit skewed nowadays because you see photos of 30s, 40s, even 50s all the time in the media now. But like, even now, still up north, there's not, an awful lot of...
Definitely not. I've had a few northerners on the podcast recently talking about exactly the same thing. The sort of dispersion of big fish, when you're talking 30 pluses, the north doesn't have a massive amount of them at all.
That's it. Most of the lakes that I was sort of fishing was, you'd have a handful of 30s in there. But
if you're lucky,
yeah. So Blakemere, when I started fishing Blakemere, there was maybe about 10 30s in there, possibly a few more. But they'd the fish in there were just crazy. They'd literally go, or the known fish would go 18 months between being caught, and that was standard. So up north, especially when one of those fish might be hooked and lost, that would be the only chance
gone
of the year. And then so.
What was the key to you catching back on Linny Gores, mate? Because you said you caught your target fish in the end. Was it just learning the lake, as you said before, or was it anything specific that you changed or did that equated to those captures, mate?
Yeah, so because I used to do full week sessions, and obviously we've got the beauty of time. Most swims you could pick sort of 4 spots. So I used to pick 4 spots at the start of the week. I'd bait 2 of them for 3 days, and then switch over partway through the week. So that those spots had seen bait for a few days already. The fish had got, let the guards down. So quite often from doing that, I'd wait until I could see fish on the spot. There used to be a little, I think it was called a stump. The swim was called a stump because there was an old tree that they cut down. It was just a stump sticking out the water. And you could go around, you could see the fish sat there. So I only used to, 2 kilos would last me a week. I'd just flick a little handful of baits in, morning and night, and then wait until I could see fish sat there under this stump, and then I'd put a rod on it. Remember one of those photos that I sent you was a fish called Spot, just had one sort of spot on its flank. I'd seen that fish there, and it was just so happy being sat there. Like I walked around, dropped the bait in, a few feet away, thinking, oh, it'll waddle off. Now it didn't. Dropped another one a little bit closer, didn't move. I ended up dropping a boilie on its head. It rolled down its nose.
What, nothing?
And then it just looked up at me and then waddled off. And I was like, right, get the rod in now. And within half an hour, that rod hitting the water, it was away. And that was that fish. But that's how I used to fish it. Like, it's different now because I can't even remember the last time I did a week-long session. But when you've got the beauty of time, you can do things like that. You can pick a few different spots and bait a couple of them for a couple of days, and then fish them partway through the week. But,
and also the benefit of seeing them. No, a lot of the places I'm trying to think that I started fishing at, the water clarity was absolutely shocking. You weren't ever going to see a carp unless it was like 2 inches away from the surface or something.
Yeah, this is it. It wasn't. It's gone back years now. It wasn't particularly deep, so it wasn't clear, but you could see them. But it was a known area. This stump. Yeah. It was a tricky cast under there, sort of overhanging branches, and that you had to like get low and sort of fire it into this little gap. But if you got in there, but even that, I did learn so much in that lake about accuracy and all that. Like, I'm so paranoid about where that rig lands, and I'd learned that from fishing to that little stump. If it was 6 inches out of that little gap, you would not get a take. You literally wouldn't, because they know what's safe and what's not. Because most people, I think you were allowed bait boats, if I remember rightly.
Right.
Possibly. In fact, maybe you weren't. I can't remember. That was that long ago. But from that day, that's been instilled into me. Like, if that cast isn't bang on, you don't get the exact drop, I'll recast.
Were you feeling for a drop at this point? Were you at that stage?
Yeah, I probably was at that stage, yeah. Because I'd fished, I think it was probably Burton-Mere was when, properly sort of started like learning properly. And then by that point, I got on there, yeah. But even that, like, it's such like a, it just seems like an obvious thing now, feeling for a drop. But back when I started, it was never talked about.
100%.
It's just like, but now, I think, like yourself, you would never leave a rod unless you felt a drop on it.
No, definitely not.
So
I'm trying to think in my own angling when that came in. I can't put a date on it or a time into it.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I know venues where I did and venues where I definitely didn't. Just crashed him in there. I'm still caught them though. It's mad, isn't it?
Looking back, to be fair, you do wonder how you actually caught sometimes. But yeah, I did like properly start thinking about everything I was doing because it was a difficult lake. And everything had to be bang on, or you just wouldn't.
Yes, low stock
catch
for a sort of starting point.
Yeah,
it's not an easy water, is it?
No, they had another lake there. I think it's called the old carp lake. And used to have a little dabble on there. And sometimes because I was doing a week, I'd rest the swim as well on Thompson's, so there's no lines in the water, and go and have a little dabble on the other lake, which helped. But yeah, that is when I started properly thinking about everything I was doing with me fishing. Well,
how obsessive was that in terms of you going forward? Because obviously we're gonna go on to linear and sort of your time spent on there, which I know was over a period of years, but it sort of took place a lot of the time over sort of uni holidays or when you had some time. But there's a lot in that sort of age bracket where there's going out, there's sort of social scenes with mates.
Yeah.
There's females or males, females, and there's a lot of other distractions that don't necessarily sort of fit with carp fishing, mate. How was people's perception of you carp fishing? How was that sort of continuation of carp fishing through those years?
I sort of like, it was a balance. Like, I used to go out and do all the partying, like we go and do weeks in Ibiza and that was my like sort of downtime. I'd go out and do the party, and then I'd have a week's fishing. to recover, basically. But no, it was sort of like, I think for me, like, my fishing has always been like, it might sound stupid, it's not always been about catching fish. That is only half of it for me. It's like, especially now when, you know, I've got a lot going on and stuff, when I get out fishing, it's like a relaxation for me as well as catching fish.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'll still, you know, like, do my best to catch while I'm there, but I just like to be out. So like those week-long sessions as well, it was sort of like just a bit of a break from everything else there.
So it weren't intense fish. It was a bit of like, decompression, if you like.
Yeah, just a bit of relaxation as well. And that's the way, like I said, don't get me wrong, I would still do everything I can to catch a fish while I'm there.
Yeah.
But like, if I've had 1 or 2 fish in a session, I'm happy. I'm not then like, oh, I've got to suddenly catch 10 fish. It's like, you know, I think it's, you know, you always have sessions where you have a red letter day and like, I will keep the bait going in, I'll keep fishing properly. But I'm not like a Tom Maker who, you know, like, I absolutely applaud those people. It's like, you are on the ball 24 hours a day. You know, I'm not like sort of obsessive to that degree where, you know, once I've had a couple of fish, I'm happy. Like,
yeah, you ain't going to be, if you've had like 3 rods go on a spot, you ain't going back out for the night, you're having a good night's sleep. Or not?
I suppose it depends at what stage it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's partly catching fish, partly relaxation for me.
Yeah, fair.
So I applaud though, you know, Tom Maker, Scott Lloyds, who like, you know, they'll hunt fish down, and I was sort of like, you know, if I've had a couple of fish and then they move off, I may or may not move. And I know a lot of people are like probably swearing that at the screen now, but like, it depends. It you know, if I've got a couple of days ahead of me, obviously I will. But if it's going into the last night and the fish have moved off into another area, I might think, is it worth it? You know, I've had a few fish already.
Yeah, man, I think that's more than fair. Fishing is different for everyone, but also I think a lot of people sort of almost feel pressured into saying, oh yeah, I got up at like 2 a.m. and I was looking for signs. They ain't doing that. In reality, like, it's a different thing. Like, fishing it's meant to be relaxing. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyable. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know what I mean, the intense pursuit all the time.
I mean, Scott Lloyd's prime example. He does do that, and like, you know, absolutely take my hat off to him. It's like, but I don't think I could do that because it's like it stops becoming relaxing at that point.
Yeah,
you know, for me. So it's. Yeah,
I get it, mate. It's what you prioritise. But throughout this course of time, you're saying pretty much your angling, carp fishing life married into what is going out and the whole sort of being a young lad, uni vibe. That was all okay, mate. There was never any people going, "What are you doing?" or any thought of you going, "I'll tell you what, like, I'm going to concentrate more on like partying rather than maybe going to linear on a weekend to try and catch some carp." No,
because I generally never used to fish the weekends, really. Like, once I started driving, I could take myself and that, you know, summer holidays and like in uni, you know, just sort of take myself off. Usually on my own a lot of the time, just because I just sort of like my own space when I'm fishing. But there was never any like sort of, anyone thought it was weird that I was out fishing, because I was still going out like socialising, doing all the partying, and then the fishing was just a break from all of that.
Fair.
Just finding that balance, I suppose, isn't it? But
linear, mate, how did you go there? Because obviously before you're talking about holidays and sort of with your mum and dad, then you're talking about spending an extended period of time fishing linear over a few years, mate. How did you first end up or choose to go there?
Again, it came from summer holidays with mum and dad. That obviously linear was, I mean, it was still popular back then, nowhere near to the level it is now, but I'd obviously heard about it, and there was a caravan site in Stanton Harcourt.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's called Hardwick Park, if I remember rightly. Literally just down the road from there. But funny enough, when I was going through those photos to dig out for you, the way I used to do it, because we didn't have sat navs, I used to print out the data. So when we went down with my mum and dad in the car, I'd write it all down. So every road we took, You
wrote it down?
I took it out the folder, but I'll send you it. I had a full list of every turn I had to make. So it was like, turn left at the BP, go past such and such services.
AA route planner. I used to print them off. Was that the one?
I don't think that existed at that point, but that's what I moved on to. But I used
What year are we talking here? Give me a ballpark figure.
Must have been when I was about 19, 20, so I'm 35 now. So 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So probably just AA route plan was probably just about coming in then, but literally I used to stick it off, print it off, stick it to my dashboard. It's probably a bit dangerous. I used to have a pen and I used to scratch every direction off as I was driving. But
I remember a trip to London to see my sister, mate. Honestly, the most dangerous bit of driving I've ever done in my life. I think I was looking at the road about like 3% of the time. I was trying to read through his directions. I was turning everywhere. Oh, mate, what a time that was.
So it's funny because like that was the first time in ages that I've looked back over old photos and just bring back all those memories. Like I was saying to you before about St. John's, on a couple of those photos, I used to fish the road bank quite a lot, and I was back down in February last year, I think it was, and it's changed so much. But when I used to fish it 15 years ago, there was no trees on that. You know where the no fishing bank is, and it sort of comes out, and you're allowed to bait up from there, but you obviously can't fish from there. But the road bank, I used to cast over onto the bank. I think it was about 80 yards or whatever, and there was 2 or 3 little bushes right on that little spit that comes out before it turns to go up towards the point. There used to be 2 or 3 little bushes, but they only hung over maybe 3 foot. And I used to cast onto the far bank with a bare lead, go round, clip a rig on, a little spoonful of bait under those bushes, and I'd have like double and triple takes.
Yeah.
But it's changed, so like you can't cast over there now. It's just solid trees.
Yeah, exactly. Was it always St. John's?
Did a little bit on Oxley's.
Did you?
Yeah, but it's mainly St. John's just because of the scaly ones in there. But ironic, I never actually got through to any of the big ones in St. John, and definitely lost a couple. I think that's the one thing I would like to go and do a bit more time, and I definitely lost a couple of big fish. I remember it was one of those sessions when I was on the road bank and I'd done exactly what I've just said, cast over onto the far bank, gone round, dropped them in. Rod goes, just lifted into this fish, and I know everyone has said to me on there, if you hit into one of the big ones, do you just kite? And that's exactly what I did. They just stripped. I think it was off memory, it was maybe about 80 yards over to that far bank, probably stripped another 60 yards, and then just kited. And the weight in this fish, he's just plodding, and there's weight there as well. And like started kiting so far left, so I'm like out in the water, like full side strain. It just started coming back round in front of me, probably only about 30, 40 yards out. I was like, this is a big fish, this. And like my knees were knocking, just got it right in front of me, cut me off on the top of the bar. And like I will always remember that. And the exact same thing happened another time. It was exactly the same thing. Hit into it, it just kited, gone right down the margin, and it's picked the lad's right hand rod up in the swim to my left. And it was middle of the night, and I knew it was going to happen because this fish was like way down in his water and was trying to get it back, picked up his rod, and I heard his alarm scream, and I shouted and said, mate, it's this fish, it's just kited. I couldn't stop it. Because when they kite at range, there's literally nothing you can do.
No.
And this lad saying, it's not, I've got a fish on. And I said, mate, it's not, it's this fish, it's right in front of you. And he's like, no, I've definitely got a fish on. And then this fish comes, obviously when the tension comes into both lines, this fish has just come straight in the margin. I've got the head torch on. The water that was turning over is ridiculous. It just sounded like a hippo wallowing. And it's just the pair.
Pulling back from his end then?
Yeah, he wasn't having it, that it wasn't his fish. It was the fish that I was playing and picked his line up. So obviously our lines have just done that. And this fish is just sat in the middle, right in the margin. And like I'm trying to grab the net to get down there. The hook's just pulled, but that was a big fish.
Oh, no,
so I think the only proper big ones that I've actually hooked in there are lost.
What did you have them to in there though? Because this time, obviously, this is 15 years ago, but they were, as you said before, those real nice, heavily plated Oxfordshire fish, weren't there?
Yeah. I didn't even have a 30 out of there in all the years I fished it. I think there was, maybe about 28, 29. In fact, I think one of those photos I sent you was a fish called Black Eye, which they let me name years ago.
Why did you name it Black Eye?
It might not be able to see it on the photo, but it had two big, I think it was just one big bulging black eye. Right. I don't know whether there's something wrong with it, but it was just one huge bulging black eye. And I caught that fish twice in the space of 3 weeks off the same spot. Doing that from the rope.
Bush spot?
Yeah, casting over. I had it twice, exact same bait, same rig, same spot in the space of 3 weeks. So I think I'd gone down, done a week session, gone away to Ibiza probably, come back for another week and caught it again. So I think I'd suggested Popeye or Black Eye. And he said, yeah, you call it Black Eye. But I don't know whether it's still, I think it might have died last year, but it was.
What did it get to? Do you know?
It went over 30. I think,
it?
I think it was 29 something when I had it. But I think it usually did 30 at the time I caught. But I think it was obviously.
I'm noticing a pattern of your catching them when they're a little bit down.
Mate, that was literally a theme that carried on until I had my first 30, and then I don't know. It was like a switch had flipped. Then tried so hard to catch my first 30, and it never felt like it was going to happen. The amount of fish that I had that were like 29.12, 29.14.
Was it significant though? Was weight significant? Is figures significant with regards to all that for you?
Definitely not now. No. I think it used to be.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a big milestone. I think your first 20, your first 30. And for some reason, I just got obsessed with catching my first 30. I think because I'd had so many near misses, it did become a bit of an obsession. But then once I'd had my first 30, it was like, well, I know the next one's obviously 40, but it's like, I wasn't that bothered then. It was almost like, it felt like a weight had been lifted. Because I'd put so much like pressure on myself to catch a 30, and then once I'd caught, it was like, I can relax again now.
It's funny, isn't it?
Bro.
You said there before, you said when you came to linear, it very much became sort of particle, a lot more particle use.
Yeah.
Was that something that you gauged and sort of took influence from the other anglers that were successful on there? Because we talk about it, and we even talk about it to this very day, of sort of the linear style of fishing. 3 rods on a spot. I know we're not necessarily doing that, especially on this bush spot, but 3 rods on a spot, bit fishing, if you like, small little baits, hemp, corn, bit of chop boilie, a few little boilies, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Was that from stuff you gleaned from other anglers around you, or was that just because you wanted to go in with that approach and it was something quite natural?
I imagine it probably would. I say it's gone back so long now. It probably would have been from other anglers and probably the magazines at that point. 'Cause it started reading the magazines, and like that's when linear started properly getting documented, didn't it? So it probably was, but because probably when now you mention it, like I'd gone from just fishing boilie on linear gore to fishing particle at linear. So there must have been a reason for it. It must have, it must have been like speaking to other anglers, because I know everyone still says to this day, St. John's is a particle water, small bits and pieces. But then I've seen people come on fish spreads of 18 mil boilies and have triple takes.
100%, yeah.
Like, but I think you've got to hit it at the right time. So it's changed a lot, obviously, since when I was fishing it. But I still hear to this day people saying, it's small bits and pieces on there.
What about the 3 on a spot thing? Did you do that? And any other swims in these sort of more open water swims?
Yeah, I mean, when I say 3 on a spot, I was still learning when I very first started. So it was probably 1.5 on a spot, probably.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm still like that now, mate. So don't worry. We'll take that.
Yeah, but would have tried to, but it was always weird on St. John's. Like, there were sessions I'd have like 12, 13 fish a few times, and I'd never have a 30. Like even like Roy was still bailiffing at that point. And he said, "Yeah, you've been unlucky there not to have a 30." But I think in hindsight, I always fished it during the summer. So it's probably always after they'd spawned.
Yeah, they're down.
So, but it was spent a good few years on St. John's.
Rig wise, where were you with that? Were you, the Adam Penning ring had gone at it? Were you?
No, it would have still been that.
Would have still been that.
Yeah, because I've still got it in my rig box, and I know that's what I had that ghosty on. So it would have still been that fishing over particle. So it's probably only about 4 inches long.
Talk me through the ghosty capture. This is pretty significant, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, it was in on the opposite the social bank. I don't know whether it's got a, around where Kempy's Point is, those few swims round from there. And I remember it's very gravelly round there. There's a lot of gravel. So we're just looking for a little silty spot. So it was like a little bar, and just found a really smooth silty spot. And I was like, that's it. Because when I'm always, if there's a load of gravel, I'll look for silt. If there's a load of silt, I'll look for a bit of gravel or a harder spot sort of thing. And I'd found this little silty spot. So right, that's it. And I think it was just coming into the evening. I think I'd had a couple of fish already. And then rod goes again, and I just caught a glimpse of this bright orange thing. And there was 2 ghosties in there at that point. The big ghostie has died, and I think it died a couple of years ago. But I think at the time I think that might have been 40 at the time was fish, or certainly up there, like upper 30s. And I'd just seen this big orange thing come up. And then that's when the knees start going, and I could not turn it. It was just tearing up and down the margins, couldn't do anything with it. And I knew it was a big fish. But to me, I mean, I think it was 28 something, so it's a big fish at the time. Yeah. But yeah, that was, you talk about moments in your fishing. That was what I know, like, a lot of people despise ghosties, and that, but to me, still a gorgeous fish. I had, it's.
I'm trying to think if I've never had a big ghostie. I don't think
there's not an awful lot about, really, is there? It's
unless you go to. We were talking about gaunts, weren't we? And like,
yeah, I think it's gone. Yeah, I never bothered with like trying to go on the syndicate down there because I didn't used to go down there regularly enough to, because obviously it's a long way from Liverpool. But yeah, it's I spent a good few years down there.
Any anglers? Did you see any other anglers sort of famous or features? A lot of features and media that were done. I'm trying to think over the years when I've been there. I've definitely been on the complex or a lake when something's been going on, whether that be an Angling Times photo shoot, whether that be a person doing a feature or stuff.
To be honest, probably back then there wasn't an awful lot.
No?
Like, because I say this is like 50. It would have been about 15 years ago. So obviously the mags were out then, but yeah, there wasn't an awful lot of that like there is now.
Yeah.
I think that's obviously why linear is so busy now, isn't it? There's so many features and that done on there. But
yeah, mate. Yeah, well, and also I just think there's a load more carp anglers, isn't there? Let's face it.
Oh yeah.
Like, the reason it's busy is because there's so many more people doing it than I think there were 15 years ago. But that's testament to linear, mate. It's an incredible place to go fishing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I said I love me time down there.
Did you go back now? You said you went back February. How'd you get on February time?
Blanked. I was I just got it wrong. I think I'd gone down for 2 nights and chasing daylight. I think I'd got round a bit late. I'd done a few laps of St. John's. I think I'd gone round B1. I just wanted to get out and catch a fish. Didn't really care what lake I was on. B1 was quite busy and St. John's was empty. I think there's only 2 people on there. So it was like, I hadn't seen anything anywhere to go off. So I think I set up in, I think it's dugout. I think it was dugout I'd set up in. And I found a spot, I think it was like 19 wraps or whatever it was. Just put a bit of bait out, just got the rods out. And I didn't recognise the bailiff because I've not been down there for years. But he come round, he said, where are you fishing? I said, 19 wraps. He said, everyone fishes, I think, 22 from here. And I was like, just...
To mess your head up a bit?
Yeah, because I was like, I just put my bait out, just got the rod sorted. I was like, I don't then want to, go and change my spots.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and then the lad, there's a lad dropped on next door to me the following morning. I think he ended up having about 4 fish, but he was fishing at that range, like 22. I think what had happened, the lads in the point were catching. This fella next to me was catching, but they were all fishing a little bit further than me.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I probably just should have changed my spot on the second night, but it was like, I don't want to be spreading. I hadn't put loads of bait out, but I thought I don't want to be spreading bait all over the place. I thought I'll stick to my spot and hopefully they'll drift in a bit close, and he just didn't. But
would you go back? But you? Would you definitely revisit it time and?
Oh yeah, definitely go back. I think I've got like a bit of unfinished business there because, like I said, I never got through to any of the bigger fish. I think when I was really chasing that 30, I always thought it was going to come from St. John's, and then it ended up coming from Blakemere in the end. But yeah, the amount of fish, I say even St. John's, they had quite a few fish that were always 30. Had them like 29 odd.
Yeah, it's just unlucky, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I say, it's probably, I always used to fish it during, when I was in uni, summer holidays. So they're always at the lowest weights. That's probably why. But yeah,
take me to Blakemere, mate, and that 30, because that's as you said, it's significant to you, but I think it's significant to everyone. Like your first 20, your first 30, your first 40, they're all landmark parts of your fishing journey, aren't they?
Oh yeah. It was I think it was the Easter weekend. Again, I can't remember how many years ago now. It must have been about 6-7 years ago.
Okay,
possibly. So yeah, not really that long ago, to be fair, in terms of like how long I've been fishing. But yeah, sort of. I can't even remember how I stumbled across Blakemere because I used to work for a design agency based in Skelmersdale, and it was quite an easy route from there, just down the M58 and then whatever it was.
What was uni, mate? What was it? Was it graphic design? Is that
graphic design. Yeah, did a graphic arts course at John Moore's, Liverpool John Moore's.
Yeah, and then into that job, was it?
Literally straight into it. Yeah. So at the end of your third year, you have a show. I can't remember what they called it now. Like just a show for you to like put on all your work, and like you do get a lot of design agencies who'll come to like scope out people if they're looking to hire people. So we had our end of year show on the Friday, I think it was, and then the Monday I got a phone call from Loaf Creative, still going out. They'd moved up to Manchester.
Right.
Yeah, literally had the show on the Friday, got a phone call on the Monday. So come in, did a placement for a couple of months, I think it was, and then full time there.
What
so
touch?
I was there, I think it was there about 6 years.
What sort of stuff there? Just design stuff? What in terms of what sector?
There was a lot of different. There was quite a bit of fashion stuff. A couple of different fashion brands we used to work for, like sort of established. One called Rare London, and they had a couple of like sub brands that we used to work with, and then it was a big mix of stuff there. It's quite a bit of fashion stuff, and then there was like just sort of random stuff like solar panel. There's a company called Western House Solar, and then they took on Liverpool One, the big shopping centre in Liverpool One. Used to do all the campaigns for that. Merseyrail did quite a few campaigns for them, all the creative stuff. And then
a bit of different stuff then, but there is some fashion in there, which is a prelude to.
Yeah, but I think it's just like that was the first agency I'd worked in. They were a proper creative agency. It was you were always pushed to find the most creative solution to whatever it was, no matter if it was the most boring thing, like solar panels. It's not particularly exciting, but you'd have to find a creative way.
Sorry to all solar panel salesmen.
Yeah.
You are boring us.
No, you know what I mean? It's like how do you dress up something like a solar panel to be interesting? And it was like used to do like quite a bit of animation stuff to explain how they worked and that sort of thing. So I used to do like all the graphics for that. But there's a big range of stuff. And then so they were based in Skelmersdale, which was just down the motorway for me, so it was really easy to get to. And then they moved to Manchester in the northern quarter, and the commute was just an absolute nightmare. Like it was just killing me. So
were you driving it?
When they first moved, for the first week, I tried driving it.
Oh no!
So I was leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was getting there between 9:30 and 10 o'clock.
Yeah, horrendous.
It was just ridiculous. I was like, right, that's not an option. So I started getting the train. So I used to drive from. I was still in my mum and dad's at this point. I used to drive from Walton to South Parkway Station, which is by Liverpool Airport. Okay. My train wasn't until I think it was 8:20, but if I got there any later than 7:20, I wouldn't get a space in the car park. So I'd be leaving ours at 7, get to the train station, get to work for 9, and then you probably know yourself what the trains are like in Manchester. Like probably 7 out of 10 trains were either delayed or cancelled. So like, some nights I wouldn't get home until 9 o'clock at night. So leaving at 7 in the morning, getting home at 9 o'clock at night, because 2 nights of the week there was match traffic on Queen's Drive. And I think I lasted for about 3 months, but it was just killing me. And I said, sorry lads, I'm going to have to hand my notes in. I just can't do this. And it was like, didn't really have anything lined up.
I was going to say, did you have an out sort of? No, just freelance?
Well, funny enough, this I know we'll touch on a bit, but that's how me and Dave sort of first started. I'd met Dave through fishing Blakemere. He had a couple of other companies, and one of them was used to do like garden. It's like all homeware and stuff. He used to do a lot of garden furniture. Marvels, the company was called.
Okay.
And he come to me. He had a massive catalogue he needed doing, and that was going to cover me for the next probably 2 or 3 months' wages. It was a big job, and I was like, right, at least now I'm covered for the next few months. So I handed me notice in and just thought I'll just go freelance. So I ended up staying freelance for about 18 months, I think it was. And that was one of the first things that I did. I was doing bits and pieces of CC Moore design work and that. So I started sort of building up that freelance base, if you like.
Obviously, it's a big move going freelance, but I'd imagine in your sector there's quite a lot of freelance graphic designers. I know that there is now. But the sort of angling link with regards to CC Moores, and we'll go back to Blakemere and talk about the fishing, but at this point, while we're there, have you got a relationship there with CC Moores already?
Yeah, just through, again, it all sort of started through Blakemere, really. That was when I sort of started getting into more like creative side. If you like, I started like videoing all my sessions, like putting out diary pieces that like really started getting into me photography. And then it was just when I'm making myself sound so old here, but it was like when Instagram first sort of came onto the scene. And that's where the brand, as it was back then, started, if you like. I sort of needed an outlet for all this photography. I was taking all these nice photos and had nothing to do with them. You just sort of sat on my camera. So it was like, I'll set up an Instagram page and start posting some shots, and that just for my own fishing. But then like the designer in me was like, it's got to have an identity. You know, I can't just post photos of, like, so it needed an identity. And then it obviously it'd be quite an interesting one to talk about, to be fair, because a lot of people might not know that Kumu started out as On the Beaten Track. Back in 2015.
I've still got some original OTB.
Keep hold of them, mate. They're like gold dust. I've got a handful of mugs, and that's about it.
I've got loads, mate.
But yeah, it's weird. So, but that's literally how it all began. So yeah, set up the Instagram page. I was like, it needs to have an identity. Needs to have some.
Why? Is that just because of you as a creative person, or because there's a lot of people who take mega photos? There's not a lot of people that sort of would then take the photos and then think that there needs to be sort of an identity behind it. They just use it as theirs. Like I see loads of really nice photos taken by individual people. Then they're not necessarily conforming to a brand at all. What made you sort of? I don't know. What made you sort of? Is that just how you think, or what? I don't know.
I think it is. It was like, it started off as a little side project. Because I think when you work in design agency, sort of any creative agency, you'll put ideas forward to clients, and you might have the best idea for that solution for whatever they've come to you for.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh no, I don't like that. We'll go with that instead. And you have like this really brilliant concept or whatever that never actually sees the light of day. So I think it was that. It initially started just for photography, but it needed to have some sort of identity for me, because if it was going to be a little side project, it needed to have an identity for me. And then I'd had a couple of ideas for, bits of design, which is where the Death Rig came about. It was the very first design I ever put out. And I think I'd sort of planned to just sort of show people what I did and like my creative style and how my mind works, I suppose. And that's literally where it started. And then people started seeing it, and then I picked up like bits of freelance through because I started posting like bits of design that I'd done and that, and like CC Moore, like that's how we got talking and started doing design work for CC Moore. So that became like, CC Moore was one of my first freelance clients.
Yeah.
And then I had sort of about 4 or 5 different agencies in and around Liverpool I used to freelance at regularly. And yeah, just sort of built up from there. It'd be in different agencies every week, which was nice. Always sort of kept things fresh and new, because I think you can get quite like complacent, if you like, when you're in the same agency all the time. But like when you go into a brand new agency every week, it's like, I've got to prove myself here. So I think that's the way my mind has always worked. I'm always looking for the most creative solution to everything. And that, yeah, I think probably gone off a bit of a tangent there from the question, but that was
dragged you away from Blakemere, because I was interested in just that whole process, because it's a lot to go from a job and then not necessarily being happy in the job with a commute to then going into being freelance, to then also not only being freelance but integrating your freelance work into an aspect of an industry that you love, which is fishing. Is quite the achievement in itself. There's a lot of people that probably wouldn't do that. The big step would just be to go freelance, let alone try and involve sort of something around fishing, which is quite hard, notoriously, to get into.
Yeah, I mean,
quite a small industry.
Yeah, to be fair, like it was never my plan for it to turn into a brand as such, or a business, if you like. It was just that all sort of came about by accident. I think, like I touched on before, when you work in a design agency, client comes to you with a brief. You might submit 3 or 4 options for them to choose from. Yeah. And there's always one that you prefer and you really want them to go with, but then they might go with another one. And you're like I had a brilliant concept there. You picture it all in your head, like that would have looked amazing, but it just gets chucked by the wayside. So I think in my head, this brand as it was back then was going to that was going to be my outlet. There was no restrictions. I could do whatever I wanted. And that was where the Death Rig sort of came about. I'd always had an infatuation with sugar skulls. And I was like, I'm going to make my own sugar skull, but I'll tie in fishing. And I think that's how I look at everything now. It's taking 2 different things, slamming them together and making a creative solution to that.
It's interesting, isn't it? I just did an interview piece for a newspaper, and they were talking about fishing and like it becoming more mainstream and having its moment and stuff. And I was like referencing Nash and sort of drum and bass and that whole thing coming together, two completely different worlds. And as you say, with a lot of that work, I remember it being so different when those Sugar Skulls came out. I remember looking at it and going, wow, that's quality, because it is fishing, but also Sugar Skulls are very sort of tattooy, sort of cool, and do you know what I mean? Like very different. You wouldn't think it would work, but it did, and it was unique. And as you say, people ran with that concept and wanted to identify with the brand. Going back, before we go into Kumu World, On the Beaten Track and everything else, mate, going back to Blakemere, this first 30-pounder that you caught, but also just getting onto that venue and its significance. You talked about the job, you talked about where it was. How did you find Blakemere from that point? Was it just because it was sort of in that local vicinity?
Yeah, I was sort of looking for somewhere to fish that was within an hour or so, because I was going down on a Friday night after work in traffic and stuff. So I was just looking for somewhere that was within an hour or so's drives, so I could go and fish the weekends at that point. And yeah, just I actually can't remember. I'd probably just search for Northwest Fisheries, probably. And then yeah, that was it. But just literally fell in love with the place. It was no like glacial mere, about 9 acres, 9 swims.
Deep?
No, not particularly. Probably about 12, 13 foot in it.
Okay,
in
so
its
not
deepest.
mega deep then.
No. It was just sort of there's no features as such. It was just sort of like sort of oval shape and to a point at one end. And then obviously just margin sloped off gradually into the middle, where it's probably about 12, 13 foot.
Stock-wise?
And then Dave will probably correct me on this. I think there was maybe about 280 fish, possibly.
Okay. 9 acres, 280 fish.
In about 9 acres. But again, there was all the known fish would literally go 12, 18 months as standard between captures.
Why is that?
I think when all the pads come up, there was a lot of areas of pads. So like there was a swim called the pads, and you probably got an acre and a half of just solid pads. So once they were up, they just sat in there, and the same at the other end. There's a lot of safe areas for them where they couldn't be caught. But then, you know, there's a lot of fish just in general that might go 6 months between captures. But then there's barbless hooks as well, and because of the pads, you did get fish lost. But like, if that fish only did a trip every 6 months and it gets hooked and lost, then naturally it's 12 months before it's being, you know, actually seeing the bank.
A lot of anglers on at the time, or quite busy or not?
Not that busy now.
Right.
You could always get on. It was a day ticket to begin with, and then turned syndicate a bit later on. And it's sort of, you know, that's obviously where I met Dave and where like we went on to be business partners sort of thing. But because I was doing me videos and like my diary piece and that, it sort of gained popularity from people watching it and going, oh, I'm gonna go and fish there. So yeah, that was sort of like the start of like going into business with Dave. But yeah, I just fell in love with the place. So it was just, there's only 9 anglers on, but you'd never see another angler because of the way everything was laid out. There was only sort of 1 or 2 swims where you could see someone opposite, but they weren't opposite, they were sort of offset. So there was never had any issues with people casting into your water or anything like that. You know, it's just, you literally felt like you were there on your own. And I just fell in love with the place. I fished it for, I don't know, a good few years. It's been about five years, I think. But
what was the sort of the strain of carp that were in there, mate? What are they like?
Mainly all VS fish. There's a few Simmos, and then there was a few originals. There wasn't an awful lot of originals left when I started fishing it. But yeah, mainly all VS fish.
Like clear or not? Clear water?
No, it was really weird. It was like
chalk,
sort of like browny black, because it was like real, obviously no glacial mere. It was all like really silty. Well, I say really silty, not like really deep silt, but it was almost like sort of brown tinge, like a deep brown
like
tinge.
peaty, sort of.
Yeah. Sort of. It was like really. So yeah, clarity wise is sort of next to nothing really. I remember at one point, like Dave used to have trouble with, like, because there was farmland, like used to get all the runoff from the farmland and stuff, and used to have like algal blooms in the summer. So at one point he died, and it went really clear at one point, and it was just mega, because you get up a tree and like see the bottom, which you'd never been able to see before. But yeah, it was a weird sort of like browny colour. But it wasn't I say silty. It wasn't like really deep silt where you had to really worry about your rigs and
It's not
and
like
stuff,
some
but-
real old estate lake type
No.
where you literally it's just bog everywhere. Was there a differentiation in the bottom? Was there any firmer spots, or was it all just pretty uniform silt? Oh, there
was like really firm spots. I mean, generally because you never had anyone opposite you, you would always fish into the far bank. So like the lake was almost split into two. So this side you had 4 or 5 swims that fished over to the opposite margin, and then the other half of the lake fished the other way. So it was generally, I mean, they just used to use those far margins as patrol routes. Like there was a swim called the Boathouse, and they had a huge section of margin like opposite that. It was just a patrol route for them. They'd come out to the pads at the far end, and it was probably a good couple of 100 yards, but they'd just move along and just be up and down this margin all the time. The Boathouse commanded like a good, pretty much like, half of that whole margin. So you used to be able to walk right round to the far side, and I'd literally just spread bait, probably 40, 50 yard spread of boilie, just all the way down it, and then fan 3 rods across. And like a lot of people just used to fish that way because it was exactly 25 wraps, but you're about a rod length or so off the far margin, and that was rock hard just because it had seen so much bait. The fish had just absolutely like hammered it. But yeah, it's funny on there because like I used to fish the same way all the time. It just spreads a boilie. They absolutely loved boilie on there.
Would you fish over the top rig-wise? Hinges? Or something?
Yeah, semi-stiff hinge just with a cork ball over the top, just match the hatch. But they absolutely loved boilie on there. So I obviously wouldn't put it all in one go, but I'd generally start off with maybe 1.5 kilos, spread over 3 rods. And then as soon as I had a fish, it was, 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos after every fish. And they'd stay in the area then. But like you'd always find, like you'd fan 3 rods out across an area of maybe 50 yards, and then there'd always be 1 rod that did a bite. So then you start moving the other rods like closer to that area. There was always little spots that they preferred at certain times. And I remember one session I did on there. I think it was probably just waking up out of winter, and there used to be old like staging. It used to be a match venue years ago.
Right, so old legs.
Yeah, and I think they were using, there was this one little bit of old staging that they must have been using it as a rubbing spot. So I'd seen a few fish like showing on it. And it was my middle rod that was bang on this. The staging was probably only a metre or so wide, and it was the middle rod that was going every time. I had a good session. I think I must have had about 8 or more fish, which was rare for on there, but it was a middle rod every time. So then in the end, I literally had 3 rods all on the stage, like, in a metre like spread at 100 yards, and had a fish on every rod then. But I think it was just they were using that spot as that old stage as a rubbing post, and then just feeding right there.
Yeah. Mate, it's such a nice way of fishing when you look back, isn't it? Like, such a simple way. Throwing stick, big spread of boilie, bish, bosh, bash. It's
You used to just walk round to the far side, so you didn't even have to throw and stick. Yeah, you could walk right the way round, and I'd literally just walk along, just literally a handful of boilie and just spreading it as far as I could. It was just like such a simple way of fishing, like easy fishing, if you like, but it just worked. And it was the same. The other side of the lake used to fit towards Dave's house. It was all big overhanging trees. You couldn't walk around that side, so you had to throw and stick it or spom it. But yeah, it was always the same, just fishing to the far margin, big spread of boilie.
Right, hook baits or match the hatch, you said?
No, always match the hatch.
But
funny enough, I was after Ivy was a big common in there. I think it was 31 something. I'd been after that, and I think I'd put a pink floor out once and caught a common on it. And there wasn't an awful lot of commons in there.
Right.
And I had this common on this pink fluoro, and I was like, I wonder if there's something in that. And then next session I had another common on a pink fluoro. Like generally what I'd do, fishing 3 rods, I'd fish 2 on a match the hatch and 1 on a fluoro, just to see what worked. And it was generally the match the hatch that always went. But there was a proper pattern starting to emerge, like fluoros were catching commons. So I was like,
do you think that's a thing on there?
Definitely. Honestly, like I can't remember exactly, but pretty much all the commons I caught were on fluoros, and it was happening too much to be a coincidence. I was like, there's something in this. And I knew Ivy, she always did it. Sometimes did the trip in May, and then always the first week of December.
First week of
And
December, yeah.
it was always those 2 times. If it didn't come out in May, it was guaranteed to come out in December, and it would normally come out in December as well. So that was one that I remembered, because I think I'd gone on the 30th of November or something like that. I think I had to be off on the 1st of December. And I think I was texting Bev, and I was like, I'm on tonight, so the common's due. And I was like, I'm a bit early, but you never know. And it might have actually been the day before trying to do that rhyme in my head now. It was a 30 days, hath September and all that. Yeah, it's 30 days, isn't it? Is it? Whatever it is, anyway.
Whatever.
I think I was a day early.
Right.
It was due like the 1st of December, if you like. And I was like, oh, but you never know. Like, I've got a pink floor out there. And then literally the following morning, that rod, just 2 beeps, lifted into it. And again, they used to do the same thing. If you're hitting into big fish on there, they just start stripping line off you. Like at 100 yards, just tear right down the far margin and just kite. And I was like, knew it was a decent fish. And then it was Ivy. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was the morning of the 1st of December.
Fluoro revolution, mate.
Honestly, mate, there was definitely something. It wasn't a coincidence, because unless I was fishing the fluoro, I wouldn't catch a common.
God, yeah.
And when I'd worked that out, I was like, that's going to catch Ivy.
Did she come out on a pink fluoro before? Didn't you know?
I don't know, to be fair. I mean, a lot of the lads used to just fish boilie, but I couldn't tell you what exactly they'd been caught on.
What did she go?
I think it was 31.
Yeah, decent.
5 or something.
That's a result, mate, isn't that?
Yeah. So there's only a handful of, but yeah, Blakemere did me first 30 as well after all those years of trying fish called Scar, which actually went out. I think I caught it about 2 or 3 times. In the end, it became
It's always the way, isn't it?
my pet, because it, obviously when you do a lot of time on a lake, when there's still fish that you want to catch, you do start having the repeats. Because I think I had Scar my first 30 in the April bank holiday, and I think I had the big Lynn. That was one of my main target fish in the November. I think it was
the 30,
the same.
yeah,
I think it was 30 again, 31 something. I'm bad at remembering weights, but yeah, so that was me second. But yeah,
Am I right in thinking Blakemere's now got like lodges, hasn't it?
No, so I mean, I'm sure Dave won't mind me saying it, like him and Nick got divorced and had to sell the house and the fishery. So the fella who's taking it over, I think he is an angler, or he's maybe been an angler in the past, and he's not really interested in it now. But there was rumours of him putting like lodges on there and stuff. As far as I know, he's not done anything with it. I think they said he's seen, like, if he drives past every now and again, there's a couple of bivvies there, but it seems to be there permanently. So I think there was talks of it being turned into a paddle boarding lake or something. But all the fish are, because whenever Dave used to net it, say roach house or anything, you'd never get any carp, because there was a net would always get snagged on something, or you never really got any carp. So all the carp will still be in there. Yeah.
What a crazy lake, mate. It sounds cool, but at the same time, like, different.
No, it was mental. Like I said, literally all the known fish would go 18 months between catch. And
There was not like an abundance of naturals or anything. I mean, there's some pads, but there's not like massive weed beds full of naturals where you think they've switched to that.
It was teeming with naturals like bloodworm and...
Was it?
Yeah, really. But like literally during the summer, it would go 8 weeks between doing a fish.
Right.
Literally.
That makes sense then.
Yeah, there was that many naturals in there. Like, and that was sort of where the concept for On the Beaten Track actually came about, because I think I'd caught the big Lynn in November, started again the following year, and I'd sort of catch him well up till about May. And then that whole summer, could not get a bite, no matter what I did. And then you start changing them, you start changing your rig, start changing your bait and everything. And then I come full circle again. Started fishing exactly how I was, spreads of boilie, stiff hinges, and then started catching again in the September. So it sort of come full circle, and that was where the whole concept for On the Beaten Track came from, because when you look at the icon, it's the same with Kumu now, which I know we'll touch on. It reads the same way. So it was the idea of like this compass where, your fishing is a journey. Like, in a literal sense, you'll travel all over the country, all over the world to go fishing. and you'll try loads of different things, but you always end up coming back to what you've always done. And that was sort of where it...
So deep, mate, and creative.
I know,
I've got none of that in a locker. When we have like a product meeting and I have to come up with some ideas or something around like slogans, it is my worst nightmare. I've got no creative flow.
I think
I'm
it's
absolutely dead, mate. I'm a brick. But you, mate, that right there makes perfect sense. I'm thinking, yeah, I could have thought of that. But in reality, I've got no game.
I think it's just the way my brain is wired. Like I always like not all of the graphics that I produce, but like a lot of them have got a concept behind them, and I always feel like the ones that have got a strong concept, to me, they're the most, they're the most successful and the most like accomplished. If you like the Death Rig, it was like, as you say, bringing together two very different things, fishing and design, and like slamming them together to create something completely different. I think it's just the way my brain has always been wired and the way, I've been taught in the agencies I've worked in and stuff.
It's just a talent, isn't it? It's just, mate, that's what you blessed with. Fair dues, mate. Take that. From Blakemere, we're going to go to a couple of other sort of chapters that I know you've done a bit on. Another sort of northwest stomp in the ground and a definitely frequented place in our neck of the woods is Wyreside, mate. You've done a bit on there, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to love fishing. I've not been on for about a year or so, but I will definitely still go back to Wyreside. You only used to fish bantams. And again, always during the summer, I used to love it. Once that weed comes up, it does get like really, really
Savage.
weedy.
Yeah.
But I just love it on there. It's just a proper carp water. And the weed would literally be floor to surface. And it was just like, but generally where the weed was where it was. And there'd be clear spots around it. So just sort of letting around trying to find a clear spot.
But that's different, isn't it? It's not. I'm trying to think, like, just generally, you've got like the whole Cheshire scene, which has got loads of meres.
Yeah.
They don't really have a lot of weed, but they're quite silty. You deal with silt a lot.
Yeah.
You might deal with depth of water a lot as well. You sort of, your linear is your linear with regards to gravel and pockets of silt. But again, it can get a little bit weedy, but nothing like the weed that you've got there. Was that slightly the first sort of venue where you were faced with that sort of enormity of weed in terms of coverage?
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
You found that all right, finding spots and stuff?
I think the first couple of sessions, it does mess with your head a little bit when you've not, I say, it is choked with weed like during the summer. So when you first like letting about and trying to find a clear spot, you're just bringing up like huge clumps of Canadian, it does mess with your head a little bit. But then once I had a couple of fish, I was fine. And I love weedy lakes. It's in my head, it almost makes it easier because you know the areas you can't fish.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just looking for clear areas around that. And then I just went to there with the exact same approach that I'd taken at Blakemere, just spreads a boilie. But what I always used to do, because a lot of people had spot like, bits and pieces and stuff like that, I used to find a clear spot on the edge of the weed and I'd bait all in and around the weed because the fishers used to use those weed beds as like patrol routes. Like you could see where they've made channels in it to come in and out. So I'd just try and find a clear spot as close to that weed as possible, but I'd make sure that a lot of that bait was landing in the thick of the weed.
Yeah.
Because those fish know it's safe there. They know they can eat that without being caught. And then, before they know, it's like, I've always described it's like a sort of Hansel and Gretel like scenario, if you like, to sort of come across one bait in the weed, then another. Before they know it, they're out of the weed feeding on your clear spot, and then they make a mistake. And that always worked really, really well. But again, one thing I found on there as well, obviously, during the day, that weed is giving off oxygen, but at night, it's drawing it in. So they were very happy sat there during the day, but at night they'd move out because, that during, I forgot this the right way around, during the day it's photosynthesizing and giving off oxygen, but at night it's drawing oxygen in, so it's not comfortable for those fish to sit in that weed at night. So at night I'd always try and find an area in deeper water away from that weed where, because they'd move out of it at night. So like quite a lot of the times in there you'd be catching during the day, and then those deeper spots away from the weed would be doing the fish at night.
You catch them in the weed at all?
No, to be honest, it was that thick. You tried to, it was inevitable. Like you'd always get weeded up when you were playing them. It's just a bit of cat and mouse then. But no, it was that thick. You couldn't present it. It wasn't safe to like fish in the middle of it. Yes, it's like really, really thick.
And getting them out, obviously there's no boat, is there?
There is a boat on site that you can use, but generally it was just like, it's just patience.
Yeah.
Like I say, there was that much of it. they were always going to get weeded up at some point. So it was just keep steady pressure, enough pressure to you're not doing them any harm sort of thing. And then if there's no give, I just put the rod back on the rest for a little bit.
Well, and wait for them to kick themselves out.
9 times out of 10, you always would just slacken off, and then they'll just come out the other side of it, and you're back in contact then. But that always works, so you don't want to be dragging them through the weed. But no, it was that's some
What'd you catch on there, mate?
Again,
I've not fished bantams. I've only fished sunny one, and I think wire at once. But I haven't fished bantams, mate. So I wouldn't.
Yeah.
What's the stock like?
Again, there's a handful of 30s, not
right.
Maybe 8 or 10, possibly. I think you've seen some of the photos sent of mega old fish, like
they're cool, aren't they?
Black, unreal stock in there. Some mega looking fish. But again, your average fish was sort of like low 20s, mid 20s. Again, I don't actually think I had a 30 out of there, but my target fish, McQueen, I think it actually died last year. I think I had that at 29 something again, and that was always over 30. But
you need some better scales, mate.
No, yeah. Leave a few leads in the sling.
Too right.
But no, so it's weird. Like up until that point where I was really chasing my first 30, once I'd caught it, size was irrelevant. Then obviously we all like to catch big fish, but it's not a huge driver for me anymore to be going and catching like the biggest fish I possibly can. It's just if I like the lake and I like the style of fishing, then I'm happy.
Talk to me about that. What's your? You said there it's not about size. It's not necessarily about you're not your atypical target fish angler, as in I want to catch that one. I want to catch a 40. I want to catch a 50-pound common. What is it that you said there about the style of angling that sort of gets you? What have you got to have the variety to be able to do lots of different things on a venue? Have you got? Is it got to be a challenge? What is it?
Yeah, I do like having a challenge. I say Blakemere, I'd sort of found out what worked, and that was I wouldn't say not lazy because of taking the time to work out what worked, but you could turn up and you knew what was going to work. You knew where the fish would be at a certain time and stuff, and then you knew you could just turn up and you'd be fishing effectively. But then bantams, again, completely different style of fishing. You're looking for clear spots in the weed and that. But that was just I just when you sat there in the showing and stuff like that, it's just, if it's a nice environment and there's nice fish in there, that's
enough. Yeah,
that's enough for me. Obviously, I like catching big fish. Don't get me wrong, but it's never been a huge driver for me anymore. So, I'm happy catching mid 20s or the northwest 30-pounder is still a big fish.
Massive, yeah.
So it's just I like a different challenge. I say keeps you on your toes, and you're fishing. I say Blakemere to bantams, it's night and day, completely different.
Yeah, you could
water all
more different,
altogether. So it's just it does always take me a little bit to get my head around a new lake, like it does with anyone, I suppose. But it's once you've sort of cracked it and you've had a couple of fish, your mind sort of settles then, I suppose, because I do always get quite paranoid with me fishing, especially if you're struggling and it's a new water and you think, what am I doing wrong? But I think you just got to keep that confidence that what you're doing's worked elsewhere. But yeah, it's more just about do I like the lake? What's the stock of fish like? Are they nice looking fish? That's what does it for me.
Well, where are you on fish and the whole wrong-uns, imports, that sort of stuff? Are you happy to angle for absolutely anything? Are you personally want sort of heritage or a certain look of carp? You want to go catch some leanies, or I don't know, mate. Where do you sit on all that?
Yeah, I wouldn't go and fish for big pale imports, that sort of thing. That's not my sort of thing. I do like nice scaly ones. It's got to have that for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's more like the look of the fish in the water rather than the size.
Fair dues.
Because I say, to be fair, like you say, up north, it's not like you've got a huge selection of waters with 40s in. So it's not saying you take what you can get sort of thing, but
no, but it's interesting because you've got enough connections in the industry now to probably get yourself on a ticket where there's lots of 40s or 50s or whatever if you wanted to, but clearly that's not a motivating factor.
No, I mean, I would like to get on a syndicate.
I've done about some tickets. I'm not doing about tickets. Fill in with tickets, mate. He loves them big.
No, that would be nice. to be fair, I would like to get, on a nice, like, quiet Syndic again, because I didn't really, when I sort of finished my time on Blakemere, I didn't really have any plans of what to do. It was sort of like a little bit lost, I suppose. I think a lot of people, like, they will always have a plan. They're like, right, well, this ticket's going to come up at, next year, so I'll spend my time on this, and then I've got another ticket lined up ready to go. At the moment, I've not really got any plans. Like, I think just when I finished my time on Blakemere, I was planning on just travelling. Done a few sessions on Horseshoe, like lovely fish. Again, there's big fish in there, but there's probably only a couple of 40s in there. There's a good head of 30s, but really nice looking scaly fish.
Mega fish.
Really weedy water. It's just that sort of thing. Now,
how'd you get on there, mate? That's very I'd imagine that's very you, mate. It's a good head of fish there.
We had a couple of mega sessions on there. I think me and my mate Steve, we'd gone down. I think it was 1 October. And we doubled up in Winter Point.
Yes,
I think
Steve, the same swim. Yeah.
I think you might have dropped on just after us once. I think you were doing a bit of filming.
Yeah, maybe
just after us once. Yeah, Steve got there a bit before me. Done a lap, and he'd seen a few fish in like Winter Bay and spoken to a few anglers. Said, there's definitely a lot of fish in Winter Bay, and that swim just came free as I got there. So we were like, no brainer. I think we ended up with 20 fish between us.
Nice. Any good ones? This was after spawning, wasn't it? It was just after spawning, was it?
October time, I think it was. I think it was about mid-October.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So I think I had a 30, like, few, like, sort of upper 20s.
Where did you fish it? Did you fish off the end, or did you fish off the right?
We tossed a coin. I went straight out in front, and there was just found this tiny little
16, 18 wraps, was it, or not?
I can't, something like that off the top of my head.
18 wraps, I swear it is. There's the same spot I fished it after you, I think.
The two, the new build houses opposite, and there was like the two chimney breasts.
That's exactly the spot.
Probably what, but it was tiny. Like it
weren't tiny when I got in there, mate.
Probably because I'd filled it in with about 15 kilo of bait, but it was tiny when I dropped on. It was like, wasn't really big enough for 2 rods, because like a couple of times, like a fish on the take wiped out me with the rod, so I ended up moving 1 rod off it in the end. But it was this tiny little spot in beneath, like there was a huge bank of Canadian behind it, and either side it was just, so the line lay was terrible. You're going over the top of the weed down onto this tiny little spot. But it was just like, I was knackered. I had massive bruises on my arm from breaking the net down. Honestly, I was
a good session. Mate,
I was broken. I think we did 3 or 4 nights.
Bits and pieces again, or not? Or
it was mainly like boiling, just chops, bit of corn, pellet, and just a little wafted over the top on a little Ronnie. That was my next day. Like, I don't mess about with rigs an awful lot. I'm like, once I found something that works, that's it for me. I don't change it. So like, but I didn't have a rig for fishing over little bits and pieces, if you like. So it was like, love me stiff hinges, and the Ronnie is like mechanically it's very similar. So it was like, right, well, that's my new bottom bait, because I was almost like, what's the word? I didn't want to use it because it was so documented, and that I didn't want to feel like I was just jumping on a trend sort of thing. But like, mechanically, it was so similar to me stiff hinge, but it allowed me to fish a bottom bait. So we had a mega session on.
So you fished it on the deck, hook flat with a wafter?
Yeah. That's how I've always fished.
Never fished it as a pop up.
Never. Always
you fish your hinge.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I have 3 rigs. I have my stiff hinge from fishing over spreader boilies. I have me Ronnie even fishing over bits and pieces, and just a simple solid bag rig.
You ever fish your stiff hinge over bait?
I have been, yeah. So the lake I'm fishing at the moment, just on one of the Warrington waters, like it's quite a lot of weed in there, and it's like quite sandy and that. So it's like, I do fish a stiff hinge just because I am worried about presenting and that. But I don't like fishing a stiff hinge and a pop up over bait unless it's a spreader boilie. But it's always a bit like alien to me. If I'm fishing over bits and pieces, I like to fish a bottom bait, but then presentation wise, I mean, I still fish it like really low, but just to give you that bit of bit of confidence, isn't it? But,
decent. Horseshoe's lovely, mate. Lovely. Those fish are lovely, and they show, mate, don't they? That's the thing.
I think that's the thing. It's like, it's the same with Bantams. It's like a proper carp water where they show themselves, and like it gets you excited. Fish lakes in the past, like I did the year on the bowl in Stafford, The
Right.
syndicate there. And that was like, it was a bit of a journey for me. It was about an hour and a half down the motorway, and M6 could be a nightmare.
Horrible.
And I sort of felt like I was just pissing in the wind a bit on there, because it was, I think it's about 60 acres, is it?
Don't know,
Just,
mate. It's big.
yeah, it's big. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It doesn't look like there's a lot to it.
It's an old reservoir, so it's just like one island in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, so not in the middle, sort of off to one side. But to turn up, there's no features on like to speak of on the bottom. It's just all flat. You turn up. They very rare. When it did show, they put on a mad show, but it was normally like 400 yards out in the middle where no one could ever get to them. But like you turn up on there, you wouldn't see a single fish, and you're like, where do we start? But like. As I say, like Horseshoe, they love a show, and that to me, it's so exciting when you turn up and like you can see them showing that, and that's what I look for. I did a year on the bowl. Literally only had a few fish, maybe I had about 2 or 3 fish, but it was just because I just felt like I was pissing in the wind. The local lads who fished it and get a spot going and stuff like that, they're doing well, but I'd turn up, you see nothing showing. I'm like, well, where'd you start on a lake that size? And it's like, yeah, just sort of like. Wasn't the one for me really. You like to have something, like even on bantams, for example, even if they're not showing, there's going to be fish in that weed, so it gives you something to.
And they're accessible. If you do see one show, all right, there might be somebody in that swim, but if you were in that swim, you'd have a chance of angling for them. Whereas if you're talking about an expanse like that, realistically, they could be showing miles away from where you can get anything anywhere near them.
Yeah,
which is hard. You did though. I remember seeing it have a mega bit of success on Bluebells, didn't you?
Yeah. Me and my mate Steve, we did a few. I think we did about 15, 20 nights, but between us.
Did you film it, or am I making that?
Yeah,
up?
I did do we did a couple of films on there. I don't probably touch on it, mate. I don't tend to do an awful lot of filming now, but yeah, it was still when we were doing all the diary pieces, and that was back when we were still.
Why'd you can that, mate?
Just time, to be honest. Like when I was freelance, I was getting out fishing a lot more regularly.
Yeah.
So I generally do like 48 hours every 2 or 3 weeks most of the time, I think. Whereas now, so busy, it might be 6 or 8 weeks between sessions for me now. And don't get me wrong, I miss it and I would like to start doing it again, but maybe bringing a videographer with me to film me. So I think it's just, when I was getting out fishing regularly, I didn't mind doing all the filming.
Yeah.
And like, there was no pressure, because I knew if it didn't feel like filming that particular session, I'd be out again another couple of weeks and I'll film on that one. But now, because I'm getting out fishing so infrequently at the moment, when I do go fishing, I just want to chill out. It was sort of getting to that point where it started to feel like work, and there was no cut off between work and pleasure, which, as you know yourself, it's difficult to make that differentiation between work and your hobby sometimes, isn't it? I think that's what it was. It just sort of started feeling too much like work, and I felt like
the lines a bit,
it wasn't relaxing, because you'd always think when you're trying to film yourself, if you want to get a shot of you casting out, it's like, right, I've got to set the tripod up there, I've got to frame that up perfectly. You might have to do a dummy cast to like see if it's all in frame and all that, and it's like you just want to fish. Like it does eat into your actual fishing. But yeah, we filmed a couple of our sessions on Bluebells. So I think the first session we did about 4 or 5 nights, and you've done a lot of time on there.
Yeah, fished Bluebell back. Probably before you guys got on, a long time before. It was sort of one of the first waters from Leicester that I went across to that had decent size of fish. That was the draw for me.
Yeah,
big commons like Benson. I think the first time I stepped on the complex, I saw a bloke catch Benson.
Yeah.
I've never in my life seen a fish. Even now, it's probably the biggest carp it's not the biggest carp I've seen. I've seen bigger, but in terms of a spectacle, I was a wee lad, and I was like, geez, it's like a baby whale.
That's it. There's some unreal fish in it. That was obviously the draw for it. I say I'm not like driven by the size of fish, but like it's almost like a bit of like holiday fishing. You're going down to do 4 to 5 nights. Like you want the chance when you're doing that length of time. I think you want the chance of catching a big fish, sort of thing. So that was what drew us to it. And I think we'd done 4 or 5 nights on that first session.
Where'd you go on Kingy?
Yeah. It's difficult water, like very, very riggy fish. And we dropped on, is it the lock bank where you first come on and you've got the lock behind you? I think it is called a lock bank, isn't it? We were on those a couple of swims there, and you've got those snags in the margins, and they were just up, and you could see them
in there,
crystal clear, they were back and forward. And I managed to get it on film. It was just unbelievable. I think it was our final night, and the weather just changed. Like we'd really struggled. I think we were chasing our tails a bit, which we sort of learned the next couple of times we really chasing our tails, like trying all different things, changing spots and all that. And in the end, we've literally just made it 10 times harder for ourselves here. So like took that into the next session, but it was the last night of that first session we did. The weather just changed. The wind just started trickling in to those swims. And this like mid 40 common come out literally half a rod length from the bank. There was a little, I'm not sure of the swim names on there, but there's a little bush to my right. And it literally, I'd been stood there in the waders. At one point, it literally just came, and I got it on film, set the camera up. And it was you probably dig it up on YouTube if you look at it. It's probably mid 40 common right in the edge, and it was just showing constantly. And I'd literally lowered a PVA bag in, just with a little whittle down bottom bait with I tipped it with a little piece of pink fluoro. I'm not joking, this fish, I think it was like 14 hours in then, because I could hear them showing all night, but we sat there and watched them.
On there are mad, aren't they?
And to see it was literally where your bag is on that chair. It was that close.
Crazy.
And we were literally sat there like whispering to each other, and we were just looking at that rod, because it was coming out right on top of the rig all the time. I was like, it's got to go in a minute. It just wouldn't go. And I was like, it's that piece of fluoro. Like, the only reason I'd put it on was just for the little bit of buoyancy. That was I don't think I had any wafters.
All in the solid bag, this?
All in the solid bag, yeah. There was no other bait, literally just a little solid bag. And I don't think I had any wafters, so I'd put that little piece of just for a bit of buoyancy. And I was like, that's why it's ignoring it, because it was coming out time and time again on me. I was like, I'm going to have to reel it in. So I quietly reeled it in, put it back out, showing on me again. And I was like, that has got to go. And I could hear them all night. In the end, it didn't get boring, but like we were just watching this fish showing on me all the time.
Couldn't be the same fish, surely.
There was 2 or 3 fish in that area, but 2 of them were like mid 40 commons, and we'd seen this other one, and it was the final morning. We literally had everything packed away. Bivvies were down, everything was back in the van, and we just left the rods out, and we were sat there and we said, should we just give it half an hour? We literally hadn't even. I was like, no, but straight into it, fish on. I was like, this was literally the final half an hour that we were going to be there. Now, I think it was 29, so it wasn't that one that I'd seen showing, because like it was mainly that fish that I had seen. I was like, this is a mid 40 common that I'm playing here.
That rod, yeah.
And like I remember Steve says it, mate, just because he could hear me breath going. I was like, mate, pass that net, and I was like my knees were knocking, because I was convinced I was playing this mid 40 common. Still an absolutely unreal fish.
Yeah, they're mega, all of them.
Yeah, so dark and I think Steve had lost one on a zig at some point during that session, and then we came back in the October, both blanked. We were on the riverbank, is it? Yeah, yes. the opposite. Yeah,
the opposite
on the
side.
Yeah, to where is it rats and
rats.
Yeah. Kev Hewitt was opposite me hauling, I think he had 5 fish, and we were basically fishing opposite sides of there's that big bank of weed that comes up in the middle. They did not move from that area for, I think it was 72 hours we were on. I think he had 5, no matter what I did, just could not buy a bite. But I think that it's so spotty on there. Spotty. Like
there's key swims that command
they just
key water. Yeah.
Although they were in the whole area that we were both fishing, he did not want to feed anywhere other than on that spot that Kev was on. So we blanked that session, and we went back in, I think it was the following April, after the shows. It was busy, and then we dropped on the other bank opposite the lock
where
bank.
The LPJ is and all that.
I think so. I don't really know the swim names, to be fair, but dropped in there. I think I had one on the 3rd or 4th night. Another 29 common, I think it was.
Oh, was that caught?
Exactly the same tactics, just solid bags.
Never saw bag, didn't I?
Yeah, I just found weren't putting a lot of bait in, because we tend to find, again, because we've done a bit of time on there, we were sort of like, I think we put too much bait in when we first started, and I think it's that busy and there's a lot of bait going. I think they do shy away off big beds of bait, so we were just putting 6 bombs, in the morning, and just topping it up with a few at night, and then solid bags over the top. And I think I had one on the third or fourth day, and then I'd definitely been done not long after that. And Steve was still yet to catch at this point. I think he'd probably done about 12 nights, maybe more.
Without a bite?
Without a bite. He'd lost one on a zig that very first session we did. And then both blanked the next session, and then we came back, and it was the final day of that session when I just had like the 29 common, and this fish showed he was in that corner swim which fishes down into where all the pads are, and this fish come out, so we put a zig on it. Within half an hour it was away. It's lifted into it, just started to turn line, hook pull, and like I nearly cried for him. I was like, he's worked and worked for that one fish in the hook pull, and I was like, literally, I nearly cried for him.
What do you say to your mate in that situation, though? Would you talk to him or just leave him on his own?
I just sort of left him for a little bit, because I was just like, when you've worked so hard for it and you get a hook pull, I was just like, I'm just going to leave it to it for a little bit. And then that was our final night. Then the lake filled up. I think it was actually completely full. So we said, right, let's reel in. So we reeled in the afternoon, rested the swim, no lines in the water, and the fish just moved onto us. Because it was the only area with no line. So then we got the rods back out, like, on dusk. And then Steve's like an excited kid. Like, whenever he goes fishing, he's like a big kid. He's like a kid in a sweet shop. And I was well away. It's like first light in the morning. He comes flying into me bivvy. He's like, mate, it's massive. And I'm like, when you're that shocked, you can't, I couldn't speak. When I couldn't get any words out. Nearly had a heart attack. I'm like, mate, what? He's like, mate, I've got one. It's fucking massive. And like, I said, I come down. I don't know how I didn't have a heart attack. He literally scared the shit out of me. Like, went round. I just did that with the net, and I went, fuck me, mate. Like, again, like, he was biggest fish I've ever seen. It's Lucas for 47.
I remember seeing the picture with water shot, innit?
Yeah.
He's got a water shot with it. It's sick.
But that was like, he'd worked so hard for that fish.
It's karma, innit? He deserved it.
And his biggest one, I think that is the biggest common in there now, isn't it?
Probably is, I'm not sure in stock at the moment. No, but it's a mega fish.
Yeah, so that was... we haven't actually been back there since, to be fair.
Time for a revisit, boys.
Well, he's completed it now, hasn't he? So.
Oh, he has. But you got, is he? No, there's still plenty of fish in there to catch.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I only had two fish. It was just like, we always used to pick a couple of venues. Like he's done a couple of sessions on Orchid, Horseshoe. We tend to try and do like a couple of southern trips a year, and that's like a sort of little... like holiday, if you like. So yeah, probably try and get back down at some point. But,
yeah, too right, mate. Some good angling there. You referenced earlier, mate. We talked about the sort of the start of On the Beaten Track, mate, which was this brand. You and Steve meeting, and how that sort of freelance journey came into this sort of concept.
Yeah.
When did that then become a concept, a bit of identity? And then a business, mate, because there's a lot between that, no?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, it was completely by accident. So, like I say, when I started like the Instagram page up to put like my photography and stuff, and I was doing little bits of like creative photography and like bits of design work and that, I just wanted somewhere to house it, if you like. So that's where that started. And then it literally started completely by accident. To say, like I touched on before, when you work in a design agency, there's all these ideas and concepts that just get pushed aside because the client doesn't want it. So it's like, right, I'm going to use this as my creative outlet to do whatever I want. And it was like, it just sort of made sense to me at the time. It was like combining my hobby with my, two passions, with like fishing and graphic design. So I said, I always like sugar skulls. So right, I'm going to design my own sugar skull, but I'm going to put an angling spin on it. And my original plan was, it was never meant to be a brand, which again we'll touch on in a minute with the whole trademark thing, but it was never meant to be like a business, if you like. My plan was, with that death rig, I was going to get a few prints done and send it to all the big brands just as like a piece of artwork for the wall. That was the original.
Just for them to have?
Yeah, just for them to have. Because it'd just be something nice. It was like, I think I just wanted to, sort of prove that, like, because it's fishing, it doesn't have to be boring, if you like,
Yeah.
You can inject a lot of creativity into it. And I think that's what, I wouldn't say I was trying to like prove a point or anything. It was just like, I just like to show people what I could do and like just like excite people, if you like. So that was the original plan. I was like, design this death rig. It was sat on my Mac for months, and I was like, should I do something with it, or should I just keep it to myself, or whatever? Just print it, have it up in the house or whatever. So no, I was like, I'll get some screen prints done. I'll send it to some of the big brands just so they can have on the wall as a piece of artwork. And then I was like, actually, I'll just do some t-shirts, just see how it goes. So I posted the graphic on Instagram, and it hardly had any followers back then, and people just started going mad for it. And it was like, in my head, it was like, I love the design, love what I'd done, but it was like, didn't sort of expect that response to it.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll just try and do a run of t-shirts. So literally did a run of 50 t-shirts, set up a little big cartel store as it was.
Right.
And the t-shirts sold out like in the weekend. And I was like, well, I wasn't expecting that sort of thing. So I was like, I'll just do a few more. So I think I did 100. Same thing again, sold out. And I was like, this is madness. And then I did the mugs. The mugs were the one that literally launched the brand. Like literally people were getting like so angry with it, because I think I was ordering, in the first run I did, I ordered 108 mugs and they sold out in half an hour.
They were ridiculous.
And then I was like, it's madness. So then I think I ordered 250, and then they sold out in 9 minutes when they next went on sale. But I think because it was so different at the time, people they had to have it because there was nothing else sort of like it. And it was like, I need it. And people started getting really angry because they'd be waiting for these mugs to come back into stock and the t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then they'd go on sale and people were like, are you taking the piss? Like, how many have you ordered? 10? I was like, no. Like, but at that point, I was still working full time. Like, it took, when it first began, we were actually like wrapping them in bubble wrap and then literally paper packaging and all that. And then it moved on. We started getting like the poly boxes and stuff, but I couldn't keep up. I was still working a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
And like me and Sarah, my girlfriend, had met not long after like I started the brand, really. Or maybe just probably just about the same time I started the brand anyway. And then when we first met, she just bought a house on her own, little 2 up, 2 down. And then like, probably about a year in, when it had grown a little bit, I moved in there with her and then turned the spare room into like stock room / office. And then it's probably about the same size of the room we're in now. And it was literally just stacked to the ceiling with boxes and everything. And it might sound a bit silly when you look back on it now, but still at that point, I'd never ever envisaged that it would become a business. I honestly thought, because at that point it was only the death rig, that was the only design that I had. And I honestly thought, there's probably a few people who want it, and once everyone's got one, a mug or a t-shirt or whatever, that'll be it to be happy, and it'll just fizzle out. And I thought, if it pays for like a phone bill every month, a little trickle income sort of thing, I'll be happy with that. And then it sort of like just kept gathering pace. And then I was like, still never envisaged turning it into a business, because at that point I was working full time 3 days a week in an agency. So I was contracted 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days I was either freelancing or just working on the brand, if you like. And then it just kept sort of growing and growing. And I was like, it got to the point where like Sarah's spare room was full. It used to keep all the stock in my mum and dad's. We used to have we used to call them packing parties on a Friday night. We'd just, all the stock would arrive, get it delivered to my mum and dad's. We'd have all the boxes like all up the stairs in the spare room. Their spare room was full. And we used to all go round on a Friday night, because I used to try and make it as easy as possible. We used to package everything up in the sizes and that. So it was in the little, just used to use the little like paper envelopes, the big padded paper envelopes for the t-shirts and that. So used to put all the sizes in each one of them, and then just keep the stock in Sarah's sort of thing. And then we'd used to get those big, the laundry bags, big massive bags with the big handles on it. Used to fill those, and then I had a click and drop account with the post office at that point. So it was like a prepaid card.
Yeah.
And they hated me. I'd fill like 2 or 3 of these bags and take them in. And then
here he is.
Yeah, honestly, they used to see the look on the face when I went in, because it's like, there was a lot at that point. Like there was a lot of like mugs and t-shirts, and like when I was working I say 3 days a week, I'd like some days I'd be going in with these big bags of stuff, and then I'd have to go to the post office on my dinner hour to drop it all off in the post office in town and that. And it just kept going, and I was like, still, again, it sounds stupid, but it still wasn't seeing it as a business at this point. It was just like, it was still this little side project, and I was just enjoying what I was doing. I had complete creative freedom to do whatever I wanted.
There's your baby,
and people were enjoying it, so I was just like, yeah, just carry on. So like gradually sort of the orders got bigger and bigger in terms of like numbers that I was ordering and stuff, but then it literally just reached a point where I couldn't handle it anymore. Like, we'd physically ran out of space. There was nowhere else to keep stock and stuff. Time wise, I just couldn't handle it. You know, I was doing a full day in work, coming home, having my tea, packing orders till like 11 midnight at night, you know, going into work the next day, going out to my dinner hour to take them all to the post off. And it was just, it got to that point where it was just like, it just plateaued.
Well, a victim of your own success, isn't you, mate? There, really.
Well, yeah, it's weird and you look at it like that. But yeah, it was just, it had just plateaued. Like, we ran out of space, and then it was like, it was sort of that decision. And it was like, right, what do I do here? Because it's either, I can't carry on doing both. It's either pack my job in and make a go at this full time, or, you know, just let it drop altogether. Yeah. But I was like, you know, I was enjoying it, and I was like, you know, sort of enjoying that more than my full time job sort of thing. Because it was, as I say, it was my baby. I could do whatever I want. So I carried on doing 3 days a week at the agency I was working at in Liverpool. And then me and Sarah found another house. So it worked well because me 3 days a week gave us enough so we could get the mortgage. As soon as we got the mortgage, I handed me notice in and went full time. But it was that, it's all about time. And so at that point when it plateaued, and I was like, right, I'm going to have to look for like some sort of unit or whatever. But that's a scary thing, because it's like, you know, I'm going to leave a full-time secure job with a secure income to do this at the same time as having to pay for, you know, some sort of unit. Or like, I was looking at that like big yellow box company, and like the prices in there were like ridiculous, you know.
And you just moved house with a missus.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot.
That's it. So it was like, it was weird, but literally at that time, I remember we were on holiday in the lakes, and, you know, obviously I'd known Dave a good few years, but at this point, and he'd sort of seen how the brand, if you like, had grown through Fish and Blakemere. So that's where it all started with the video work, and he, you know, obviously Dave's had other businesses in the past, and he could see where it was going and stuff. And he was, even before we went into business together, he was always offering me advice and all that. Like, and then literally out of the blue, we were on holiday in the lakes, and I got this email from Dave to say, how do you feel about going into business together? He's like, you know, I've watched the brand grow and stuff. He said, you know, I think you're onto something here, you know, and it's in an industry I love. You know, I'd love to be involved with it. Like, what do you think? And I was like, you know, me and Dave are really good mates. And it's like, there's no one else that I would have gone into business with. It was just like, I've got no business, not, you know, sort of picked it up as I'm going along now, if you like, but I'm not business minded.
Are you the creative side?
Creative, like, all that numbers and all that, just like doesn't compute in my brain. I like doing the colouring in. So it was like, I had the creative side, Dave had the business side.
Perfect.
And it just worked. So me and Sarah just sat there, and I was like, yeah, you know, I reckon we should do, like, it was a risk, because I hadn't handed me notice in at this point, but it was like, it is a risk. It's like, it's either I just let this fizzle out altogether because I can't keep up with it anymore, or I hand me notice in. And, you know, me and Sarah had that conversation. It's like, it's a risk. Obviously, we just bought a house, like, we've got a mortgage and bills and everything.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember having the conversation with Dave, because I think for a few months I did carry on doing 3 days a week at the agency, and I was doing bits of freelance as well. And Dave was sort of, it was reaching a point where I didn't have enough time again. I said, well, just hand your notice in. And I was like, but Dave, I don't know what I'm going to do 5 days a week. And he just laughed, because, you know, Dave's built businesses up in the past. He went, mate, trust me, you will find stuff to do 5 days a week. So yeah, handed me notice in, and then we were lucky because Dave had a lot of space at Blakemere. He had a huge basement. We kept all the stock, and then we bought a little shipping container, which he put on the garden.
Perfect.
And then sort of outgrew that. and then moved into our first unit in Whitchurch, literally just round the corner from Blakemere, and then it's just sort of grown from there. But
it's funny, mate, how like that's well organic, innit? There's like obviously a meeting of people. There's your sort of creative side, there's his business side, but there's also no real intent apart from probably when you two get together and start thinking about it more seriously. But throughout that whole come up, there ain't really any intent for it to go anywhere. It's just happened, doesn't it?
There wasn't. I say, like, still to this day, like, I do pinch myself because, like, how has this happened? Because this, you know, if you'd sat down and thought, right, I'm going to start a business now, and, you know, you watch it growing up, but I think, like, I just love doing the design work, you know, being creative. Like, it still is just an outlet for everything that's in my head. And I think it's just like, I think if you love what you're doing, like everything else sort of falls into place, if you like. Like I say that, you know, we've both got a very like defined role to play in the business as it is now, if you like. But like, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, you keep pushing yourself. I think it is quite organic.
It makes you wonder as well, like good people, good stuff, and there's a lot of things that have to fall into place for it to get to where it's got, and that's all happened. Yeah. So I don't know if you're that way of thinking. There's something sort of out there that you've put out there that's sort of come full circle. You hinted at it earlier, mate. We're now Kumu,
yeah,
but before we were on the beaten track.
Yeah.
There was a lot. I remember being at Angling Direct. I remember you doing a T-shirt for Tracker. Yeah. I remember the name change coming after that. And I remember so many DMs saying, oh, have Tracker bought it? Have Tracker fallen out? What's happened? Why has it changed? What's going on? And I was like, I don't really know. I'm going to ring Stephen and ask him, but I'm probably not going to give you the answer because it's not my place to say. But I'm sure everything was okay. And then it was relaunched after a short period as Kumu.
Yeah.
And there was all sorts of things sort of talked about why there was a name change and all sorts. For you, talk to me about that whole thing, because as a brand, that's a pretty, catastrophic potentially thing to happen for you to have to completely change your name and in the middle of sort of building an audience with a previous name.
Yeah, mate, it was probably like the most stressful. I think it was about 8 months it went on for. It was the most stressful 8 months of my life. So, yeah, it was weird, you know, because you mentioned the Tracker thing the other day.
Yeah.
And until you'd mentioned that, I'd never heard that anyone thought it was anything to do with Tracker. Because
all over the place.
I say it was literally just before it all came about. Obviously, did the Artist Series collaboration with Tracker. This was before me and Dave went into business. It was just when it was me on my own. But yeah, I was surprised. Like, I'd never heard that, funny enough.
It was like every day I'd like 5 messages. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, I can talk about it because I did put a video out at the time sort of explaining why we were having to change the name, but we were still going through all the legal battles, so we couldn't really say too much about it at that point. But basically, because it sounds stupid now, like, because I'd never planned for it to turn into a business, I'd never bothered going down the route of trademarking on the beaten track, like the name and the icon and everything, because it was literally never in my mind and it would become a business. I thought it'll be a little side project. You know, I'll do a couple of bits and pieces every now and again. It'll be a little side earner for me. I've got no need to bother going down the route of trademarking anything. So when Dave come on board, we sat down. It was like, you know, we need to get this trademark. We need to protect ourselves because, you know, at that point it had sort of in that very moment, it become a business because we'd gone into business together.
Yeah.
But up until that point, it was just a side project. So it was like, you know, we do need to look at getting this trademarked. So then you end up doing everything in reverse then, because if I had started out with the intention of building a business, you'd trademark the name before you did anything.
Yeah, protect it. Cool.
So now we'd have to do everything in reverse. So I literally remember it so vividly. We just got to Zwalla. That was our very first show we ever did, even before NAS and everything. I think we'd already booked NAS and the big one, and then last minute we were able to get a space at Zwalla, which is now Carp Den Bosch. And we just submitted the trademark application a couple of weeks before we headed off. And literally, we got to the hotel after the 12-hour drive. We sat there just about to tuck into our tea. Dave checked his emails. We've had 2 oppositions to this trademark application. And we're like, fuck, So we were like, so basically, and again, I didn't talk about what it actually was at the time because we were still going through all the legal stuff, but basically there was a women's American shoe brand called Off the Beaten Track. Off the Beaten Track. And a little independent surf shop in Cornwall.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
Also called Off the Beaten Track. And both of them and still, we don't know how it's happened. They've both got the exact same trademarks in the exact same category. So they both had Off the Beaten Track and OTBT trademarked.
Oh, it's the OTBT. Okay.
So straight away, I mean, Off the Beaten Track on the beat, it's almost identical anyway, and OTBT is obviously identical. So they both opposed it. So then you back and forth with solicitors then in a legal battle. So we went back to the American company and they basically turned around and said, as long as you agree not to do footwear, we're absolutely fine, crack on as you are. So we were like, all right, fair enough. But like, you know, we're a young brand. It was like, we've got no intentions of doing footwear right now, but you don't know what happens in the future. You don't want to sort of limit yourself to what you can and can't do. But we're like, we'll wait and see what this other one says, this little surf shop. So they literally come back, flat out refused everything we were suggesting, would not let us have it. We were just
the
like...
surf shop?
Yeah, you've got... Oof. To be honest, I've not actually looked for...
Your fans here, mate, will go and find this surf shop. No, don't do that.
No, yeah, right, don't do that. But yeah, so I say I've not looked recently, but we've got no website, no social media, no online presence whatsoever, not even like a brand to speak of. They've not got like a visual identity. It's just a shop in Cornwall. And for whatever reason, they've trademarked the name. So they flat out refused everything. We said, listen, we're not even in the same industry.
Yeah,
you know, if you want, we'll agree. We'll never do anything to do with swimwear, surfwear, anything like that. You know, we won't, no one will ever confuse the two brands because no one's going to stumble across both of us. It's a completely different industries, would not have anything. They said it had to be, the name had to be conceptually different. So it couldn't be the idea of something being on a track or a path or anything like that. And we were like, well, so we've got, basically what you're saying is we've got to change the name. So we changed the name and the icon, everything. And it was literally going on for about 8 months because obviously it's so frustrating the way it works. So like once they've opposed it, or once you've submitted, they've got 2 or 3 months to oppose it. Then they can submit an intent to oppose, which then gives them an extra month to do something about it. And then you're back and forth with solicitors. You're waiting weeks for replies between letters and
sure.
Yeah,
it's not the one, is it?
Got to the point where our solicitor said, "Listen, lads, like the next step is to take them to court."
Yeah, no.
And you've got to. They said something like, "You've got to." You could ask them to prove that they've used that brand for those categories that they're saying it's trademarked in and stuff. But he said, to be honest, I just wouldn't advise because at the end of the day, they have literally got your name trademarked.
Yeah, before
you're probably not going to win, and if you don't, you'll have to cover all their legal fees. And the worst part about it was, look, until we knew what was going to happen with the name, we couldn't order any more stock because we can't order stock, have it come in, and then find we've got to change the name. So in the end, we're just like, we've got no choice here. We're going to have to change the name. And it's like being in that. I remember I likened it to like, you know, say you were a kid on your 4th birthday party, just about to blow your candles out in your cake, and someone walks in and goes to your mum and dad, "Oh, no, you've got to change his name now." It's like, what do you mean his name's Hassan? It's like, no, you can't call him that now. It's like, you'd be like, well, but that's his name. Like, we've not known him by anything else all his life. Like, we can't just change the name. And we were in that situation. It was like, you're just starting from scratch again. But we were like, we wanted to keep the icon as it was with the 4 letters. So we were then in the situation where we needed to find a 4-letter name which repeated the 2nd and 4th letter.
Yeah, okay.
So we could keep the icon because, like, you know, the icon had gained like notoriety and that. So we were like, we want to keep that so there's still, you know, some recognition with the original brand sort of thing. But then I say, for someone who's never like gone to trademark anything before, it's really not a simple process. It's like you've got to try and find a name that's not already trademarked or similar to something that's in the same categories that you want to trademark it in. So, we literally had hundreds and hundreds of names, and I literally mean hundreds, and you just got to be ruthless with going through them all, crossing ones out, and so we narrowed it down to about 6 or something. But then you've got to think, can I get the web domain? Because some of them we'd find it was all the web domains are taken.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a trademark, it was a web domain as well. And I said we needed to make a decision because we needed to get stock in. Because it started when we were in Zoala and it was getting towards late summer. And we were we need to get an order in so we can get stock in for Christmas. If we don't have stock in for Christmas,
we're making any money. Yeah, exactly.
So we did take a risk because basically when you submit your application, I think anyone has got 3 months to oppose it. But we'd chosen a name that it was unlikely that anyone was going to oppose it because there was nothing similar in the categories that we needed it in. Yeah. So we ended up placing a big order before we actually had confirmation that we had that name. But if we didn't,
you were out of pocket. You were gone. Yeah, exactly.
That would have been
who came up with Kumu?
It was probably just one of us. I don't know. We were just writing down any letters, so and it was just
there's no reference in those letters. Then it's just just followed that trend as you said with the original.
Yeah, I think initially people did think it stood for something because people were like, what's it stand for? Because OTBT was on the beaten track, and it was for us on the beaten track because it was never meant to be a brand as such. It was just a little side project. On the beaten track wasn't the best name for a brand because everyone always got it wrong. Everyone always just called us off the beaten track or OTB or OTTB or they'd always get it wrong, and it was so long-winded. It never worked as a brand name. So we wanted something short and snappy, and that would be memorable. But when you put in that situation, it's just a made-up word. If you I know Nash is different. It's Kevin Nash, but if you just took the word Nash, you think, right, I'm going to call my brand Nash. Straight away thinking, it's quite a strange word, isn't it? It's
I think that's so odd, mate. I'd still be there now trying to think of a name, as you say, but you got to get it done timescale wise and making some money. You had to get it done. But obviously, that gamble paid off, mate.
Yeah.
Stock's in. You're now built back up, trading and sort of back out there. Thank God all that. I remember speaking to you shortly after it and you just going, thank God, Hassan, that is out of the way. I can breathe again and crack on. Talk me through, and this is probably more of the crux of it, is your sort of design process, mate, because the designs are mega. There's loads of different things, as you say, sort of married together. We talk about the train and the fish that you've got, design that you've got there, but there's loads of others that you've done subsequently. How does that work, mate? Because I can't imagine that being do you know what I mean? An easy process for you to create something and then bring it to life and put it on a garment. How does that work?
I think I'm just I'm always in competition with myself. I'm always trying to outdo myself. I'm always trying to do something better than the previous design that I've done. So I put an awful lot of pressure on myself to be creative and do something that no one else would think of doing. Like the True Leather. I said, this is one of our most popular designs at the minute, and it was that was brought about through Alan, Ollie wearing the Air Max fish, and it was a lot of the things I do, it's sort of a response to something that's going on, whether it's in the industry or it's just an idea that I have. So I know I sent you some initial work in progress of the social pollution graphic that I did years ago. A lot of people might not even have seen that now because it's quite a few years old, but the reason I sent you those, I wanted you to see part of that process because people only see the finished article, the nice shiny thing, but they don't see everything that's gone on beforehand. So with a lot of the graphics I do, they take so long and they all come full circle. You might start at one point, end up somewhere completely different, but I always like them to have some sort of concept or idea behind them because I just feel it strengthens the graphic itself. So the social pollution one, it was sort of there seemed to be a lot of negativity on social media in that years ago. And it's sort of at the same time, I can't remember the lad's name, but he caught that. Well, it was at a British record weight from
wasn't it?
RH Fisheries, wasn't it?
Got death threats. Yeah,
literally got death threats, and it was what's going on? This poor lad, he's just gone out fishing which is what we all love to do. He's caught a fish, like, just leave him be. He's just going out and enjoying his fishing like we all do. So it's like that sort of sparked that idea. Then this social pollution thing, it was like, you know, the sport is being polluted by all these negative sort of comments and stuff like that. And then like the pollution side of it, the gas mask, it was like, it's two completely different concepts but brought together in a sort of fishing scenario. And that's where I think our brand sits. It's taking two completely different concepts or ideas and bringing them together in the fishing industry in a way that like a lot of people wouldn't even think about doing, sort of thing. And it was the same with the true leather, you know, like Alan loves his Air Max and that, and it was like, and then he started like a craze of like loads of people are posting photos themselves in their Air Max on the bank or like full of mud. And then I think I was putting my trainers on one day and like I just looked down, I was like, sort of looks a bit like a carp. I think my laces had fallen underneath and he was sticking out the front and looked like a pair of barbules.
Oh, right.
And I was like, that'll work. That in my head, I'm like, yeah, I can make a carp that looks like a trainer, and that's the way my mind works. And like I've sent you some like initial concepts of where that started, but it's almost comical because like it depends what the concept is. Some things I'll go straight onto screen, but a lot of things, like some of the ideas are like so like out there. It's like I just need to quickly scribble something down just to get the idea out of my head and into some sort of form, like on paper. So like started doing a bit, you know, and then I'm like pulling up loads of photos of like Air Max and all that, and I'm sort of like sketching little rough things out just to get some sort of like thing on paper. But then the process that goes through, it's like I am my own worst enemy when it comes to that sort of thing. I do put myself under like so much pressure to get it exactly right. And you know, there's literally like that social pollution one, I literally spent months on that. I'd do full, you know, 8-hour days on it and then go, oh no, shit, I don't like it, and scrap the whole thing and start again because I just could not get it right. And like, you know, when I've been making like a conscious effort recently to try and like video and film a lot of the.
Have you?
Just to try and show people what goes into actually creating it, because like I say, like some of like the initial sketches and like the initial like little mock-ups I do, they are comical because they look stupid, but then when you get to the final thing and you see where it's come from, I think, you know, cool. It's nice for people to see. So yeah, like the creative process for me, it goes all over the place, like up and down, like full circle and everything. But
how does that factor in with like you've got a missus, you've got like all sorts of sort of normal stuff to get done in your life, as well as sort of have your own time to relax, hopefully get some fishing in?
Yeah.
Does that marry up? Can you break from it and come back to it? Or are you just like, if you're in that zone and you're working on something, it's just all encompassing, like somebody who's a big carp target hunter who just loses every sort of perception of anything else and just cracks on with trying to catch that carp?
It's probably a good way of putting it, to be fair, because yeah, it's sort of like I do get frustrated because when I first start, I'm like, there's literally concepts and ideas that I've got on my Mac at the moment that I'm not mentally prepared to even take on yet, because I'm like, I've got no idea how I'm going to start them.
Jeez,
it's like
I'm not mentally prepared to take them on,
because it's sort of like there's no right or wrong answer for the final product. It's not like a maths equation or something where there's a right answer. It's like, I've got this image in my head of what I want to do, but I don't know how the hell I'm going to get there. It's like, I don't know what sort of style it's going to take on or anything. So it's like, the start of the process is always the hardest. So like, if I've got a concept or an idea in my head, I might look through some design blogs, Pinterest, for like things that are similar style or whatever, and I'll sort of try and decide on a style that I want to create it in. You know, it might be that the whole thing is hand drawn, like some of the pieces are, but starting is the hardest part, really.
Yeah.
But then once it starts getting something, that's when I start getting excited, because you see something coming together, and then I'm sort of, you know, it's all tunnel vision sort of thing. But I think up until that point, it is, and I think anyone who works in like a creative industry will tell you the same. It's like it is a very difficult process, and it's different for every single thing that you do. Is like, you know sort of where the end goal is and what you want it to look like, but until you actually get there, it's like there's one I'm working on at the moment. It won't be out till the autumn, so I won't say too much about it, but like where it's actually ended up is completely different from where I envisaged it would end up. I thought it'd be all full colour, like solid colour, like block colours and that, and it's ended up being like a line work drawing. But no,
that's just what you're happy with at the end.
Yeah, sketched it all out by hand first, and then sort of tidied it up, take it onto the Mac into Illustrator, like draw it all, and then it just started going in a direction I didn't like, and I was like, no, start again. And then you go in a different process. It's time consuming. I think like the reason I wanted to show people like like the process that goes into it is like, it'd be an easier option for us to do like, simple branded things and things like that. But for me, the brand would lose its whole identity. Like people are always waiting to see the next thing that we do. And don't get me wrong, I feel that pressure all the time because it's like, I can't wait to see what you do next. So there's a lot of pressure on me to do something that's better and more creative than the previous thing. But
also, surely in a selfish way, that's what you enjoy, isn't it? You don't enjoy just doing something bog standard, sort of safe and whatever, because you'd have stayed in your normal job, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The whole point is you want that creative license. All right, it might come with some pressure because you've smashed it, but like that's what you like doing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's just like I say, I'm always in competition with myself. It's like it is like I go round and round in my own head sometimes. Like I'll start something like, oh no, it's not good enough. I don't like it as much as the last thing I did, and I say like every single piece has got a different meaning to me. Like, and one of the questions I get asked a lot is like, what's your favorite graphic that you've done? It's like I like them all for so many different reasons, and I think the ones that have got the most sort of affinity to, if you like, are the ones that like have challenged me the most. Like the True Leather is one of my favorites because that was such a challenge to do. That it was like, how am I going to turn a trainer into a carp? And so it's actually legible, so people know it's meant to be a carp sort of thing. So yeah, it's weird. I sort of like them all for different reasons, but the ones that challenge me the most are like, always tend to be my favourites. And yeah,
mate, I'm so black and white, mate. You are, yeah, it's a different mindset. But it's funny, like I'm thinking there about like a lot of people that are really good at what they do, and even in a fishing context, to be fair, people say like, I have a feeling, or I had a feeling, and you can't really explain that to somebody. Everybody has it in different aspects, whether it's a choice of, I don't know, something that they do, or a decision they make, or a swim that they choose to go in, or whatever it is in a carp fishing sense. That same thing you're talking about there in your process, you've got a talent, you've got an ability for it, but a lot of it is around sort of, in your own head when it's right, or you go with a feeling, or there's some intuition in there, isn't there? That's like, again, it's with that individual, and you can't explain it. It's not exact science. It's all part of that process, isn't it?
Yeah, I think like a lot of like graphic designers will probably say the same. It's like when you get to what you think is the finished product, is there anything that can be taken out? Because I think that tends to be always what happens. You'll take it to a point and you'll think, oh, no, it's too busy now. There's too much going on. I need to strip it back. And it's that sort of process. You take it to a point and you pull it back, and then I can see that. I said to you on the phone the other day when I rang you, I said, I bet you've just got up. I was on a dog walk, wasn't I? I was on the dog walk and I was like, I bet you've just got up. You sat there with a coffee in a white cup, looking out on a completely white desk with an open window in front of you and no clutter around at all. Because that's how I think of like graphic designers, or like textbooks, sort of no clutter, make it all nice and clean and like happy days, so you can think. I do have to work like that, to be fair, because it's like,
I knew it, mate.
I do. It's like my studio in the house, it ends up chaos, because once I start like sketching and stuff like that, bits of paper everywhere, and then you look around, you're like, oh, it's a fucking mess in here. And then my brain,
my head's gone.
Yeah, my head's gone. It's like, right, got to tidy up now. But
what's your bivvy like, mate? Same.
Probably. It ends up being a bomb site, and then it all gets tidied up. So it goes from like, and that'll happen like a few times over the session.
Rigs out, don't forget them, mate.
Yeah. Got to have them on. But no, it's like, so a lot of the time, like I'll sort of take a graphic to a point and I'll get that frustrated with it that I can't get it right, that I'll just drop it. And that's what I mean. There's ones on the Mac at the moment that like I genuinely don't know how I'm actually going to produce them, and I'm sounds stupid, but I'm not mentally prepared to actually take them on yet.
That's mad.
And it's like I'll wait until a point where like, you know, like I say, because it's only me and Dave running the business. We try and keep our roles as separate as we can, so we can let each other get on with things. But then there's still a lot of things that we both need to discuss and decide on.
Of course.
So like, I'm not just doing design work all the time. You know, there's all like internal things that we've got to make decisions on and stuff. So like, I find it really difficult sometimes. There's so much going on and we're so busy that I can't concentrate on design. So like, quite a lot of the time, I'll just say to Dave, mate, you're not going to hear from me for 2 weeks now.
I need to get me head down.
I just need to block everything else out and just concentrate on design because I need a clear head to do it.
Well, mate, to be fair, from that organic beginning, mate, so you're in a lot of shops now. You've done exceptionally well considering all in as a brand, mate. When you look sort of into the future, and this is a broader question, but for Kumu, but also for yourself, what's the goal? What's the aim? What's the anything with regards to you, your own fishing, Kumu as a brand? What does it look like when you think about the future?
So at the moment, we're concentrating on Europe a lot.
Okay.
So obviously, like you said, you know, the mess that Brexit created. We've basically not been able to ship to Europe for the past 18 months.
Right.
I think like a lot of people, you know, we sort of think something's going to change here because it's absolutely ridiculous for both sides. It's so ridiculous that this can't carry on. So we sort of sat on our hands for a while, thinking, you know, something will change. You know, we'll be able to ship freely to Europe again. Just never happened. So like, it's just so frustrating because it's the amount of paperwork that's involved with Europe. It's the same amount of paperwork to send a single T-shirt as it is to send a pallet to a retailer. It's ridiculous. So while it's just me and Dave, it's just not been physically possible to be able to ship direct from our site to Europe. So we built up a few retailers in Europe over the last sort of 18 months during this period, because it's like, even now, like with all the import duty that's involved with Europe, that was never there before. It makes things complicated. So yeah, we've got a couple of retailers in Europe, and then we just started working with Spro to distribute throughout Europe for us, which is exciting because it sort of like gets around all of that. You know, they'll be doing all the sort of hard
exactly.
work.
You've not got the
for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Europe's a big one because the demand out there for it is like, it's really humbling. Like, I always find like when we do the shows, and I think I mentioned it to you when I saw it at NAS, that's when it like really hits home for me. Like
how broad it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I say, because it was never my intention for it to become a business. When you go to a show and see where it's gone, I'm like, how did this happen? Like quite a lot of the time, like I'll just go in the back. I think you've seen the way we have our stand, like we have all the stock. I just disappear in the back and just sit there for a couple of minutes on my own and just think like, how has this happened? And then like I said, we did Zwallow for the first couple of years before COVID. And then we went back this year through Spro to Carp Den Bosch as it is now. And like the amount of people that were wearing our stuff out there, like I just did not expect it, because like considering that we've not really been able to ship over there for the past 18 months.
That's
the
cool,
amount of people that are wearing it out there, and like we knew the demand was there because obviously throughout the last 18 months, every day you're getting messages, when can you ship to here again? And we were like, we don't know. It's like, it's so complicated. Like, so now I say that's one of the main focuses for us is getting back out into Europe, growing the brand over there.
What about you, fishing?
I need to get more fishing in. I think that is one of the things like me and David spoke about quite a bit recently, really. It's like, like we touched on before, like my fishing is my release from everything.
Yeah.
You know, when you're working so hard, and like my fishing time is the one time where I do just switch off, and I feel like I need that back again, because you know, last year, like we took on a lot of stuff as well. You know, we took on external stuff. We did like Bev's Women's World Champs.
Oh yeah, of course you did.
Brand and all
that
sort of stuff. And we had a few external projects as well. And we did take on an awful lot, and it's still all through me. Every single visual aspect of the brand is done by myself at the moment, and it's reached that point where I can't handle it anymore. So we are looking this year at using freelance photographers, designers, to help with the everyday stuff, because I think it's always the same. Any small business, you're doing the jobs of 10 different people. Like, my time, I feel, needs to be spent doing the top level design stuff, like the graphics stuff, because that's where my strength lies. Don't get me wrong, I love designing all these shots, designing all the content for social media and everything, but I feel like my efforts are best spent where my strengths are.
Of course.
So that is a big one. We do need to look at using some freelance designers, and we've used a freelance photographer a couple of times, but again, it's like he's come with me when I'm fishing. So then my fishing time is then turned into work as well. And I might not have been out for 8 weeks before that. And it's like, I've come out to relax and it's turned into work again. So that's one thing I am mindful of, like, because it's easy to burn out when you just constantly work all the time. You've not got that sort of release from it. So I do want to make sure I'm getting out more regularly, because I need it. It's for your own mental. I know it's talked about a lot recently, but fishing is a release for a lot of
100%
people, and I do feel it. Like, it gets to the point where I'm like, we've been so busy. It's like, I just need to get out. I'm turning my phone off. I just need to go out fishing for a couple of days.
Get it done, mate. You deserve it. You've done not only over the course of the recent times, but overall, mate, it's a lot of hard work that you've put in. You've seen the rewards of it, but you need to be able to enjoy it along the way. And a part of that is to get yourself out there. You work in the industry, get yourself out there fishing, boy. Get a ticket. Get out there, catch some absolute chunks, mate. But a massive thank you, for coming in all the way down to Essex, and for sharing your story business-wise as well as your angling, mate. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a real sort of, eye-opening insight into you, but also into me wearing an item of clothing and not really understanding everything that you've put into it.
All the anguish
that looks really nice. I bet he's come up with that in about 2 minutes, you know what I mean? But no, fair play to you, mate. Before you go, you have got some Nash quickfire questions, mate. I've gone pretty easy on you here, mate. You will be absolutely fine with these.
Is there going to be something about Justin Bieber haircuts in here? Is there?
No, but the Justin Bieber haircuts are available to view if you go back to your captures on Linear and on where was the best one?
Linear Gauze is probably Linear Gauze. If you go right to the very bottom of our Instagram feed, it'll still be
Justin on Bieber, but he's gone the other way, mate. The hair's scaled back and the beard's kicked in, mate. You imagine what a lookalike career you could have had, mate.
No. Gone down the wrong path.
You can always fall back on that, mate. Only fish up north, or only fish down south the rest of your life?
Up north.
Up north?
Have to be, just for the price of diesel.
He's thinking with his pockets. I like this. Drum and bass or country and western?
Drum and bass.
No, interesting. 3 celebs you'd take fishing, past or present, dead or alive. Who would they be? There's got to be an artist in there, isn't there?
You know what? That is a really difficult, because I'm not like.
You've got to whack a bit of Da Vinci in there or something, haven't you?
I'm not. I've never been like sort of like one who follows celebrities. Never. I genuinely could not even think of an answer to that. I'm not someone who like really follows celebs or.
No.
Not
interested in any form of popular culture. He's just so creative in his own man, isn't he? How cool is that? You wouldn't have any artists, no? Any influence?
No, so like I'm not. Sounds weird. I've never really been into art, as in like fine art and stuff. I'm more into like design. But yeah, I literally could not even think of an answer.
I've done it, mate. I've done you.
You really
I thought you'd have 3 set ready to go, mate. Bish, bosh, bash.
I don't follow like celeb culture or anything.
Anglers?
Like
What anglers would you take? I've done you now, mate. This could backfire massively.
Put me on the spot here. Tell you what, Des Taylor would be one.
Des!
Because
you'd have a laugh.
I've still got the VHS tape he did on Cuttle Mill.
Yes, legendary.
That will be in my mum and dad somewhere, because mum and dad don't throw anything away. But literally, I had that tape that he did on Cuttle Mill.
Yeah, he's a legend, it's Des.
that's a lake I'd like to fish. I know that wasn't a question, but that's a lake I'd like to fish as well, to be fair.
Cool, Mill.
Right. Yeah. Be a cool one.
Still do that. You got Des. Who else you got?
I'd say Alan, but I don't think I'd keep up with him.
I'll just let him go. Get somebody else to film him. Get a freelancer in.
Really have done, yeah. Dave Lane would probably be one.
Lane?
Just because he's so like, I watch a lot of his vlogs and that, and it's a completely different style to me. He's one that I'd class as a proper hunter of.
Oh mate, he's caught him, hasn't he?
Of carp, like, so it's such. I think probably him and Scott Lloyd as well. Just people who like completely different style of angling to what I do myself. Just to sit there and watch, not even just.
Fair play, mate. That's definitely you filled your quota there. Happy days. What's your idea of carp fishing hell?
Tench. I know we had this conversation. Jesus Christ, Tench literally ruined my year.
They're not as bad as bream, mate.
Honestly, I genuinely don't think there's anything I hate more than tench.
But you take a bream ahead of a tench?
Yeah. That's because a bream does nothing. A tench will wipe all three. But I've literally had that right on bite. I said last year, so I was fishing a hard lake last year, and every single chance I had was completely ruined by tench. I had absolute units showing on my spot. I had tench on all three rods. And they've literally ruined every single. So yeah, my idea of carp fishing hell is any lake with tension.
What is the price? Every man's got a price, they say. What is the price to buy Kumu? How much would it cost me? Come on.
No, again, because I'm not businessman.
Name your price here, mate. This is out to the market. People will see this. What are you shooting for? It's your baby. You created it.
I know. It's one of those. Me and Dave have had this conversation before, and like I don't know. It's like sort of Dragon's Den moment, isn't it? You don't know how.
That's exactly what I went for. I was watching Dragon's Den when I came to this photo.
Yeah, it's like
question.
Yeah, I don't know how you value a business. It's like,
don't give me a political answer here, mate. If somebody came up to you in the street and said, "Here's X amount of money," you go, "Yeah, have it." What is it?
Me and Dave individually would have to take a couple of million away each.
4 million for the whole business split between the two of you.
Probably has to say a bit more. Funny, I know these are meant to be quick fire questions, but I actually worked this out the other day. It was like, if we sold the business tomorrow, and I'd worked it out, say I lived to be 85, whatever, average age, whatever, and I had $1 million in the bank. When you actually work that out over those years, it's not a lot of money.
No.
So it's like, yeah.
So you're saying 8 million, 4 million each?
Yeah, it'd be a nice figure, wouldn't it?
It's out there, isn't it? It's out there, mate. I'll put it out there for you. Hopefully it comes good. I'm probably about 4 million short of that 4 million.
I'm sure we can do some sort of discount for it.
Yeah, maybe a long-term payment plan. History carp you wish you caught?
Trying to think. These haven't worked out as quick fire questions.
These are good though. I like this when you're having to think. This is nice.
I'm
trying to think of history carp in the Liverpool area, but there really isn't.
There's not.
That I know of. There must be.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot.
Not the old Tatton Common? Not Mary? Not, I don't know. The Black Mirror is a classic answer, isn't it?
You know what? Yeah, probably thinking about it. Probably would be. The Tatton. No, just put words into me out there. But like, yeah, the Tatton Common. I just don't think I've not got the time. The time and the drive, the effort that would be required to catch a fish like that. It's like, yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I admire people who chase fish like that. But I just enjoy me fishing. I like a challenge, but I just haven't got the time at the moment to dedicate to catching a fish.
But you'd
like
take
that.
the Tatton Common if you could take one.
I'd take that. Since it's northern.
Here's an obscure one for you. If you had to fight to the death one of these, which one would you pick? A crayfish-sized otter or an otter-sized crayfish? So you've basically got a monster crayfish or a little otter.
Otter-sized crayfish.
An otter-sized crayfish.
Because all you need to do is get behind it and then it won't be able to bite
Oh,
you.
that's flipping. It's got technique. I'll give you that. Final question, mate. Night out on the bank or a night in with the missus?
I know she's going to watch it.
Is she going to watch it?
She will watch it.
Wait.
Hopefully she doesn't watch it till the end. Because I'm
honestly,
say
what a legend, mate, at the shows, though. She looks like she's doing all the work. You're camped in the back just going, oh, how's it got this big? Well, I'll tell you how it's got this big, because your missus is grafting.
That's it. I know she will watch it and she will kill me, but I'm going to be political again. I'm going to say night on the bank because I only fish midweek and I spend the weekend with Sarah.
Good save, but also you're going somewhere with Sarah, fishing and staying on site, aren't you?
Yeah, going to Blackthorn in 3 weeks.
Go,
yeah,
mate. 2 birds, 1 stone. I've saved it for you. Stephen, mate, thank you very much for coming in, mate. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll be back soon with another Nash Off the Hook podcast. Until then, cheers, mate. You're a lad.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me.